I'm cultivating immortality with the science of mortals. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 726. Things have changed. That's no problem. Fellow Daoist Zealing only needs to take over for at least 10 years. After that, it's up to you to decide whether to leave or stay. Luo Hong himself would only stay in Dajin for another 10 years at most. After that, he would take a ride on Zyology Palace to Chaos Star Sea. After leaving some arrangements at Wanjianmen, he would just let them go. It would take at least 200 or 300 years before he would come back to take a look. In fact, after Zealing condensed her nascent soul, Luo Hong would rather she leave on her own initiative. Otherwise, if she was not captured by Luo Mo, how could Han Luo Mo have that one night of romance? After Luo Hong agreed to the only condition, Zealing no longer had any doubts. With a smile on her face, she chatted with Luo Hong and drank tea and discussed Taoism. A month later, the large and small immortal cultivation families in Guangnan Prefecture came on time with their young clansmen. Although Luo Hong did not make detailed regulations, they seemed to have agreed on it. Small families with only foundation building cultivators brought only 2 or 3 people, while large families with giant cultivators brought nearly 10 people each. Adding up the scattered numbers, the number of children with 3 spiritual roots or above exceeded 500. In addition, there were more than 1,000 casual cultivators who were watching the fun, plus the elders of each family. At the moment, there were more than 3,000 cultivators gathered at the foot of Shuanqin Mountain. Luo Hong only needed a word to gather such a formation. The appeal and power of the late Yuanying cultivators can be seen. Although Luo Hong wanted to establish a sword sect, he did not have too high requirements for the qualifications of these children. After all, the 81 sword techniques in the 10,000 swords map were all encompassing, and there was always one suitable for them. Therefore, he just set up a maze at the mountain gate. After identifying the personalities of these children, he issued sword cards that could practice the corresponding sword techniques, and accepted more than 500 children into the sect. Of course, a sect cannot be full of virgins, otherwise the purple spirit fairy, the temporary head of the Wanjian sect, would become a nanny. Luo Hong was also willing to accept the casual cultivators who came to seek refuge after hearing the news. However, these people must first pass the hard searching array set up by Luo Hong on the mountain road to screen out those traitors. In the end, more than 50 casual cultivators of foundation building and 1 casual cultivator of Jiandan were accepted by Luo Hong. It is worth mentioning that this casual cultivator of Jiandan was none other than the sturdy cultivator who participated in the King of Participation conference. This person's natal king tiger aptitude is a rare 2nd grade spiritual root, but because he cultivated in a wild way, he has never received a proper inheritance, so he has become the bottom among the Jiandan cultivators. Now that he can hope to obtain the top inheritance, he is naturally in the front. After opening the mountain gate, Luo Hong did not ignore it immediately, but took the opportunity to preach on Shuanqin Mountain and explain the key points of cultivation from key refining to Yuanying one by one, showing the style of master. When he left the stage, he showed off his flying sword ability again, using his soaring evil spirit to wash away the countless thoughts of the cultivators. 10 days later, Luo Hong finally built the framework of the Wanjian sect and arranged for the boy to practice the 81 sword techniques. Finally, he took out 600,000 spirit stones and gave them to Zealing as startup funds. After setting up 2 low-level talisman formations, he announced his retreat. Master, can't your spiritual sense lock the location of the cave in trance? Lu Zhu knew how terrible his master's spiritual sense was. Even a level 9 demon spider that lurked underground could be easily pulled out, so he couldn't help but wonder. If it's so easy to find, the entrance to Wentian Cave would not be known by only a few people. It must be that Wentian Zenran arranged a magic array in the belly of the mountain to deceive the exploration of spiritual sense. Luo Hong explained slowly while walking in the narrow and humid cave. He had already used his spiritual sense to scan Chuankin Mountain more than once before, but he could only sense soil and rocks. According to memory, Luo Hong walked in the cave with Lu Zhu for several hours before he saw a ray of white spiritual light. When he got closer, he saw a layer of light curtain. Through the light curtain, he could see a scene similar to what he saw in Jiang Mountain that year. However, this time he didn't have to break the formation by force. With a thought, Luo Hong held up a square wooden sign in his hand, which was the forbidden token he got in Wentian Cave Mansion that year. This token had helped him in Zushan Palace, so it should not be an ordinary forbidden token. At that moment, he used his magic power to urge it, and a white spiritual light really shot out from the square wooden sign, opening a gap in the light curtain in front of him. Without hesitation, Luo Hong immediately took Lu Zhu into it, and then raised his eyes to see two black stone statues more than 10 feet tall. One of the two stone statues held a pestle, and the other held a basin. They were almost carved from the same mold as the two in Jiang Mountain, but obviously much more complete. Compared to the foundation building cultivator back then, Luo Hong is now a nascent soul. Even if he has entered the realm of transformation, he feels different when he looks at these two stone statues. There is no doubt that these two black stone statues are the stone statue puppets that were common in ancient times, and the runes on their bodies also have the shadow of the silver runes on the feeks and stone. Luo Hong still remembers that these stone statues can drive the weakened 5-element divine light. He was shocked at that time, but now he thinks that Wen Xianzhen must have obtained some relics of the 5-colored peacock when he was traveling. Perhaps it was the effect of the square wooden sign. When Luo Hong and Lu Zhu came under the stone statue holding the basin did not let Luo Hong take out the secret book of the practice to weigh it, but a buzzing voice came out, "Old friend, there is a new thing again, come in and share it with me." Being talked to in this way across tens of thousands of years, Luo Hong couldn't help but feel a sense of wonder. So it's a token for friends? It seems that the reward of making the stone statue kneel down is beyond my expectation. After muttering to himself, Luo Hong did not take out the prepared Hangjin secret book to embarrass the stone statue, but used his magic power to urge the square wooden sign again. As a beam of magic light shot out, the two stone statues exerted their strength at the same time and slowly pushed open the heavy black stone door. Just as Luo Hong and Lu Zhu entered the Wentian Cave Mansion, the Pure Land sect far away in Zilingzhou received the news that the Sima family was destroyed, and the Wanjian sect was established. In the magnificent Buddhist hall, an old monk with a solemn appearance and 7 elders wearing purple and gold robes sat cross-legged to discuss matters. Great Elder, according to the report from the novice monk, the Sima family died very cleanly and did not involve us. The blood ginseng is still being traded around Guangnan Prefecture. Well, it was a great merit for the donor Sima to sacrifice himself for the Buddha. His soul must have returned to the Pure Land by now. However, this matter is a little strange. I wonder which junior brother would like to go and find out about the donor Luo. Although Biao has passed away, what he did cannot be abolished. The solemn old monk said with a gleam in his eyes. Chapter 727 Made Puppet. A flash of white light passed by, and a familiar scene appeared in front of Luo Hong. The white jade table full of spiritual energy, the seemingly ordinary purple clay tea sets, and the emerald green tea trees swaying slightly in the pleasant breeze. There is no doubt that this is the Wentian Cave Mansion that Luo Hong has visited before. The next moment, Luo Hong felt that he had touched some kind of restriction, and then saw 2 leaves of tea from the Wudao tea tree falling, just like they fell into the purple clay teapot yesterday. Seeing this scene, Luo Hong felt relieved, and sat down next to the white jade table with Lu Zhu. "Master, what are we waiting for?" Lu Zhu saw that his master had no movement as soon as he sat down, and couldn't help wondering. "Waiting for the current owner of this place." Luo Hong looked indifferent and said with a firm tone. As soon as the voice fell, a strange sound of clacking accompanied by footsteps came from the mountain road beside. Not long after, the maid puppet who had met Luo Hong once appeared in front of the two. After more than 200 years, the maid puppet's skirt has not changed at all, but the slightly louder sound cannot escape Luo Hong's physical examination form. When they reached the top of the mountain, the maid puppet immediately saw Luo Hong's and changed appearance, and her steps paused slightly, but soon returned to normal. Luo Hong had never underestimated the only puppet left by Wenshan Zenren, and he also knew that there were psychic puppets in the spirit world that were no different from normal creatures, so when he saw the maid puppet's strangeness at this moment, he knew what was going on. Since you are already a living being, why do you pretend to be a dead thing and say nothing? While speaking, Luo Hong used his spiritual sense to scan the maid puppet's body, and as expected, he sensed a trace of Yuanshan fluctuations. However, after these words came out, the maid puppet did not react at all, but just started to make G like last time. Luo Hong frowned slightly. What he wanted to do could not be separated from the support of the maid puppet, otherwise she could throw him and lose Zhu out with just a thought. While the maid puppet was making tea, Luo Hong carefully observed the other party. First of all, there is no doubt that the other party has spiritual intelligence, which is the basis for communication, but it is hard to say how much it has. Secondly, the other party must be loyal, otherwise he would not have carried out the orders of Wenshan Zenren for tens of thousands of years. After thinking about it, Luo Hong thought that there was only one way to impress the other party. Daoyao, don't you want to go to the spirit world to find Senior Wenshan? Hearing this, the golden flame in the palm of the maid puppet suddenly rose, turned her neck, and looked at Luo Hong with emotionless eyes, and did not speak for a long time. Seeing this, Zhu was a little scared, and reached out to grab the corner of Luo Hong's clothes under the table. Although Daoyao is a puppet body, it can't withstand the polishing of endless time. If you don't ascend, you will perish here one day. Luo doesn't know how Senior Wenshan gave Daoyao spiritual intelligence, but he certainly doesn't want Daoyao to die trapped in a cave. Luo Hong said without changing his expression, patting Zhu's little hand. If I leave the cave, I will die. Without the maid puppet's lips moving, a crisp female voice came out of her throat. Others who refine spiritual puppets first improve the surface skills and strive to make the puppets look like real people, but when Wenshan Zenren does the opposite, he makes the puppet spiritual and makes it look like a puppet, which makes the atmosphere extremely terrifying. Fortunately, the maid puppet's voice is very crisp and pleasant, which dilutes some of the horror. Will I die if I leave the cave? Luo Hong glanced at the golden flame in the maid puppet's hand and suddenly understood. Good guy, this is not a fellow Taoist, but his predecessor. He should have thought of it earlier. The spiritual level of the enlightenment tea is at the early stage of the transformation of the spirit, so how can the spiritual level of the golden flame used to refine it be lower? In other words, the seemingly dilapidated and tattered puppet in front of Luo Hong is actually a spiritual existence. This is indeed a bit troublesome. Luo Hong muttered and fell into deep thought. Unlike the divine transformation cultivators who would not be deprived of their vitality by the human world, as long as they did not use their full strength, the maid puppet's puppet body allowed her to gain a lifespan that was unmatched by human cultivators, but it also made it impossible for her to lock her vitality. She was like a vitality stone, which could be preserved in the high concentration spiritual energy environment of the Wentian cave mansion, but once it reached the low concentration environment of the human world, it would immediately evaporate without a trace. The only solution was to seal her and forcibly lock her vitality. This was actually equivalent to moving her from the original Wentian cave mansion to another smaller Wentian cave mansion. Although Luo Hong had dabbled in the sealing magic, such as using the space bubble magic of the Black Wind Flag, to take the maid puppet out of the cave, anyone with intelligence would not allow themselves to be sealed by someone they had only met twice. This was equivalent to completely handing over their lives to a stranger. Fortunately, this problem was not difficult for Luo Hong. As soon as he thought of it, he thought of a magical power that had been shelved for a long time. Under the gaze of the maid puppet, Luo Hong flipped his palm and took out a high-level spiritual stone, and then raised his right hand, and a gilded talisman pen appeared between his fingers. Then, Luo Hong held the talisman pen and danced with the high-level spiritual stone. In a few breaths, a set of golden secret patterns appeared in front of the two people and the puppet. As the spiritual energy flowed in the golden array pattern, the high-level spiritual stone that originally emitted red spiritual light suddenly became dark, as if it had become a dark red iron ore. What this meant, the maid puppet naturally understood at a glance, and the golden flame in the palm of her hand jumped twice excitedly. This secret pattern magical power of constructing meridians outside the body was Luo Hong's trump card in the foundation building period, but it became useless after he formed the elixir, and there was no chance to use it after he became a Yuanying cultivator. Unexpectedly, it can be put to great use today. The method Luo Hong used was not complicated or mysterious. He just simulated the magical power of the cultivators to lock the key and calm the spirit, and created a set of secret patterns. For human cultivators, locking the key and calming the spirit is as simple as eating and drinking. After all, the running circuit is very simple, as long as there are meridians. But for the maid puppet, the puppet body has become an insurmountable chasm. However, with Luo Hong's set of key locking secret patterns, the chasm has become a flat ground. More importantly, the control of the key locking secret patterns is in the maid puppet herself, and she doesn't have to worry about being controlled by others. Do you want to learn? Luo Hong looked at the maid puppet, who still had no expression on her face, but was actually moved, and smiled and tempted. As a result, before the maid puppet answered, Luo Hong already knew the answer. It was not that he was scheming, but that the golden flame in the other party's palm was really beating. This guy, maybe it's unexpectedly easy to deal with. Thinking of this, Luo Hong couldn't help but think that the other party was a little cute. What do you want? The maid puppet asked, trying to maintain a cold tone. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 728. Something is wrong with you. Enlightenment Tea Tree. Luo Hong did not hide anything, and stated her purpose. Deal. Well, in addition to this, Luo can. Wait, you said deal? Luo Hong looked at the maid puppet in shock, and the set of combined punches she had prepared was aborted. Well, the maid puppet nodded in a very standard way. I don't understand. Shouldn't this enlightenment tea tree be the most precious thing in this cave? Luo Hong frowned and said, seeing the maid puppet's indifferent attitude, he couldn't help but feel nervous. Anyway, it's something the master doesn't want, so it doesn't matter if I give it to you. It has no possibility of going any further here. Besides, after learning about Luo Hong's conditions, the maid puppet seemed to be secretly relieved, and she became more talkative. While talking, the enlightenment tea was already cooked, and the maid puppet quickly poured 2 cups, and then drank one of them without saying a word. Besides, if you take it away, I can drink tea often, which is very useful for my spiritual wisdom. Due to the restrictions, the maid puppet cannot pick tea and make tea privately. Only when a distinguished guest like Luo Hong comes, she can have a chance to greedily drink a cup. Then what are you worried about just now? Luo Hong was very sure that the maid puppet was afraid just now. I'm afraid that you will ask me to sleep with you. After all, your eyes are not right. The maid puppet said the truth in a crisp voice. Slander. This is pure slander. That's my academic look. Luo Hong was so angry that he smiled bitterly. After he created the secret pattern of locking key, he couldn't help but imagine how to engrave it on the maid puppet. He had no improper thoughts at all. Although he was speechless, Luo Hong would not argue with the spiritual puppet. After all, the other party was not a normal person, and his thinking was not on the same channel. Let's put this matter aside. I'm curious why when Cheyenne Zenran left the enlightenment tea tree in the human world. Can you tell me? I have cultivated this tree for 50,000 years to make it flourish today. The master left in a hurry, and the enlightenment tea tree is not easy to transplant, so I had to leave it with me. The maid puppet raised her head slightly, recalling the past. Then is it troublesome for me to transplant it now? Or do I have to wait until I advance to the god transformation stage before I'm qualified? Luo Hong frowned when she heard that when Cheyenne Zenran had difficulty serving the enlightenment tea tree, it was difficult to transplant it at the beginning because the enlightenment tea tree was young and weak. but now it is no more troublesome than ordinary spiritual medicine. As long as I remove the restrictions near the tea tree, you can easily get it. But please note that when performing the spell to transplant, you must transplant it together with the root mud. The pure and quiet divine mud is the key to the survival of the enlightenment tea tree. After agreeing to the transaction with Luo Hong, the maid puppet instructed Luo Hong on the transplantation without hiding anything. Luo Hong had only seen the pure nether divine mud on the Wanbao jade slips. It was a legendary treasure from heaven and earth. According to records, deep underground in the human world, through thousands of miles of hot magma, one can reach the ninth netherworld where the evil spirits of the earth gather. In this desolate place where the evil spirits gather, it also follows the yin and yang avenue. There is a place of extreme yang. After being soaked in the extreme yang for countless years, the netherworld will turn into the pure nether divine mud. Because this mud is born from the extreme yang, it contains infinite vitality. It is an excellent thing for cultivating the spiritual roots of heaven and earth. There is no other in the human world. Good guy. Senior Wentian is generous. Luo Hong glanced at the roots of the enlightenment tea tree and couldn't help saying, compared with this senior, he always had a strange feeling that his vision was too small. Without further delay, please remove the ban, fellow Taoist. Give me the secret method first. The maid puppet stretched out her right palm to Luo Hong. That won't do. If you regret it and activate the restriction to throw me out of the cave, I will have no choice but to swallow my anger. Luo Hong would not let down her guard just because she saw that the other party had no intentions, so she objected immediately. Then how can I guarantee that you will give me the secret method? The maid puppet said in a slightly anxious tone. You should be able to activate the restriction formation of this cave, right? With this support, why should you be afraid that I will break my promise? Luo Hong looked at the maid puppet in surprise. You are very strong. If the formation could trap you before, it can't do it now. In addition, you have the heavenly token in your hand, and the restriction on my body prevents me from attacking you unless you take the initiative to attack or maliciously destroy the cave. The maid puppet shook her head, indicating that she actually had no way to deal with Luo Hong. Hearing this, Luo Hong was shocked. If this was true, then the maid puppet's mind was really simple. Not only did she take the initiative to say her greatest support, but she also exposed her fatal weakness. This made Luo Hong, who often intrigues with the old monster, feel very uncomfortable. In this case, let's take a step back. You remove the ban first, let Luo transplant the enlightenment tea tree, and then you restart the ban. At this time, Luo will give you the secret method. After you have cultivated it, I will remove the ban again, and let Luo take the enlightenment tea tree into my pocket. Once the enlightenment tea tree is transplanted, it will die after a period of time, if it is not sealed in time. As long as the maid puppet agrees to this proposal, she and Luo Hong can check and balance each other. After all, Luo Hong has seen the magical effect of enlightenment tea in increasing spiritual wisdom on the Shiangxin divine tree, and the maid puppet is indeed unable to pick tea and make tea by herself. Otherwise Luo Hong should see a bald tea tree. As long as you don't mind the trouble, I have no problem. The maid puppet's smart eyes revealed a strange look, as if she didn't understand Luo Hong's self-inflicted trouble. Good guy, I feel like I'm fighting wits and courage with the air. After Luo Hong complained, she still did not change her mind. After all, it is better to be safe than sorry. Then, the maid puppet removed the restrictions near the enlightenment tea tree according to the arrangement. After Luo Hong confirmed that it was correct, she cast a spell to transplant the enlightenment tea tree. With the protection of the pure divine mud, even though the enlightenment tea tree rose from the ground like this, it was still lush and green, without any sign of decay. The next steps were also very smooth. Although the maid puppet had a special life form, it was still at that level, and it was easy to learn a simple set of secret patterns. In the end, Luo Hong got the enlightenment tea tree without any setbacks, and at the same time, she completely believed in the simplicity of the maid puppet. Okay, are all the cultivators outside as troublesome as you? Seeing that she had successfully locked her spiritual energy, the maid puppet finally couldn't help but curl her lips with joy, but she didn't forget to complain about Luo Hong a little. Ahem. let's not talk about this for now. From what you said before, you want to drink enlightenment tea frequently. In other words, you plan to follow me. Yes, after taking about 749 pieces of tea leaves, my spiritual intelligence will grow to a limit. The maid puppet immediately nodded in agreement. Chapter 729 Xiaojin's fate turns. It takes 10 years to refine a piece of tea, so I will follow you for the next 480 years. Of course, I won't take your things for nothing. Each piece of tea can be exchanged for one move from me. 480 years. Then how should Luo call you, fellow Taoist? If it was a powerful and naive maid puppet, Luo Hong would not care about having an extra little tail, and asked in a gentle voice. Yingming, this is the name given to me by the master. The maid puppet responded slowly. After solving the primary problem very smoothly, Luo Hong was very happy to arrange a cultivation task for Lu Zhu. With the help of Yingming's authority, Lu Zhu got a spiritual room in Wentian Cave Mansion for cultivation. Since Yingming had no authority and was unwilling to open the quiet room used by Wentian Zenren for cultivation, and the ordinary spiritual room was of no help to Luo Hong, he simply sat down on the top of the peak and concentrated on erasing the alien spiritual energy on the wound. As for Yingming himself, after knowing that Luo Hong did not want to leave for the time being, he was not in a hurry and went straight back to his own hut to quietly refine the enlightenment tea. In this way, the three people, each doing their own thing, spent 3 years quickly. There is no distinction between day and night in the Wentian Cave Mansion, and the top of the Kifan Peak is also spring-like all year round. On this day, Luo Hong, who had been sitting cross-legged with his eyes closed for 3 years, finally drove away the last trace of alien spiritual energy, and all the wounds on his body healed without leaving a trace. After dragging it on for so long, all the hidden dangers have finally been solved. After spitting out a dragon of air, Luo Hong sighed with joy. It's still early now. It's time to deal with the harvest from Kunwu Mountain. With a thought, several spiritual lights of different colors flew out from the Wanbao bag and Luo Hong's danchan, the most of which were the 6 small flying fairy stones. In addition, there are also the Mitian bracelet, the black wind flag, the yin yang liangai gourd, and a black snake with a flesh crown on its head. The small flying fairy stones contain the mystery of ascension, which is related to the major event of ascending to the spiritual world. Luo Hong's attention to them is no less than the Tangshan Ling Bao. But despite having a cup of enlightenment tea beside him, Luo Hong didn't want to start targeted research right away. After all, he had the task of traveling to Kunpeng, and he couldn't calm down, so he could only postpone it. Although the Mitian bracelet was a powerful imitation of a spiritual treasure, it was not compatible with Luo Hong. He just wiped out the remaining spiritual consciousness on the treasure and put it away, and secretly decided who the treasure belonged to. On the road of cultivating immortals, the closer you go to the end, the greater the gap between the same level. Even the Tangshan spiritual treasure cannot escape this rule. There is no doubt that the Black Wind flag belongs to the first echelon of Tangshan spiritual treasures. Its magical power and power are far above the water and fire Bagua plate and the 8 spirit ruler. In the original time and space, this flag was destroyed because of Linglang. Now that it is in Luo Hong's hands, it will not be covered in dust again. However, although the Black Wind flag is powerful, it cannot replace the water and fire Bagua plate for the time being. After all, Luo Hong has not yet broken through the transformation of the spirit. For the time being, he has only practiced the first 2 levels of Tang Baoju, which is far from being able to exert the maximum power of the Black Wind flag. In contrast, the Fire and Water 8 diagrams plate, which is familiar with the power of the universe and can exert its full power, can play a greater practical role. Of course, the spatial magical power of the Black Wind flag is still very mysterious. Even if it cannot exert its full power, it will not be shelved. Therefore, one of the most important things at the moment is to practice the first 2 levels of the Black Wind flag. As for the overflowing Arctic Yuangang and the Yin Yang Liangai gourd, Luo Hong can no longer ignore it. Because he was a little greedy when collecting it, the Yin Yang Liangai gourd is now overwhelmed. If it is left alone, it may explode in the Wanbao bag one day in 20 or 30 years. At that time, the Arctic Yuangang overflows, and Luo Hong's family assets accumulated over the years will be in danger. In fact, Luo Hong has also conducted some research on the Arctic Yuan from time to time in recent years. This spiritual light lives up to its name and is indeed the nemesis of all tangible things. But because of this, the North Pole Yuan is not easy to use. Its destructiveness is too great. In addition to being constrained by the magnetic field of the meteorite, Luo Hong can't find anything to rely on for the time being. In short, it cannot be used to refine magic weapons. It loses its changes when it is only driven by the yin-yang liang-ai good. It is easy to be targeted and not practical. In this way, Luo Hong can only think of refining the North Pole Yuan. However, the subject of this refining is not Luo Hong himself. After all, he has not yet cultivated several magical powers, so there is no need to have an extra useless thing. At this time, Luo Hong's mind moved, and a golden light suddenly burst out from a spiritual tree on the mountainside, whistling to Luo Hong's head. The golden feather circled for a while, and then suddenly disappeared. Only a young eagle-like spiritual beast appeared on Luo Hong's shoulder. Xiaojin, this is a good thing. Do you want to eat it? Luo Hong held the yin-yang liang-ai good with his right palm, encouraging with a smile. Xiaojin tilted her head when she heard this and seemed to not understand Luo Hong's meaning, but she did not convey any rejection. Although she did not get positive feedback, it was enough for Luo Hong. The spiritual perception of spirit beasts is much stronger than that of cultivators, especially when it comes to things that are extremely beneficial or harmful to them. They can always have a premonition. Although this talent often causes spirit beasts to lose control, its benefits far outweigh its disadvantages. Xiaojin has no feeling now, because the North Pole Yuan is neither good nor bad for her. It is neither like the flame essence that attracts her, nor like the natural enemy that makes her tremble. This makes her qualified to refine the North Pole Yuan. Although Xiaojin has experienced many transformations, the one with the most far-reaching impact is undoubtedly the time when Luo Hong used the method of ascending spirits to save her life in the Chaos Star Sea and accidentally made her obtain the formless golden light. The subsequent several transformations were just licking bricks and tiles on this basis. The changes they brought were nothing more than the improvement of Xiaojin's cultivation and the increase of the power of the form-destroying golden light. From a certain perspective, it was just a quantitative change. However, the form-destroying golden light was strong, but its weakness was also very obvious. As long as the opponent had a gold-type protective magic weapon, or cultivated the gold-type protective magical power, it would be difficult to use it. Before the transformation of the spirit, this shortcoming was not obvious. After all, not everyone had the corresponding means of self-defense. But after the transformation of the spirit, this weakness was very fatal. Although not every cultivator of the transformation of the spirit had all 5 elements, they were definitely on this path. You know, the stage from the transformation of the spirit to the refining of the void is the critical period for cultivators to make up the 5 element. The 5 element escape that Luo Hong has mastered now is the standard magical power of the refining of the void cultivator. In other words, most cultivators above the transformation of the spirit will no longer be afraid of the form-destroying golden light. With Xiaojin's current cultivation, she can be said to have reached the turning point of her fate. If she does not make changes, she will inevitably fall from the clouds. Chapter 730 Kunpeng Feather. As a master, Luo Hong's feelings for Xiaojin are even deeper than those for Uruaxi and Yuan Yao. It's not because he is abnormal, but because they have been together for too long. Since Luo Hong has always had a clear understanding, he has long been planning to find another way for Xiaojin to achieve nirvana. After multiple considerations, the North Pole Yuan is the key among the keys. Although Xiaojin's spiritual perception does not have a positive reaction to it, this does not mean anything. After all, this kind of innate spiritual perception only works on Xiaojin's existing magical power system. What Luo Hong has to do is to improve Xiaojin's magical power system so that it no longer has obvious shortcomings. Xiaojin's innate magical power allows her to evolve from top to bottom. As long as the crystal phoenix crown on her head is evolved first, her physical body can make corresponding adjustments to evolve the nirvana magical power. With this advantage, Zyojin's success rate and safety in refining the North Pole Yuangan will undoubtedly increase greatly. Of course, Luo Hong was able to make up his mind in the end because he found a theoretical basis from his research results. If there is no problem in theory, it is not a fantasy. The formless golden light is so powerful that it can break the silver runes on the bodies of living beings and turn them into an indescribable mass. However, apart from all externalities, its essence is still a beam of special spirit particles. The special nature of the formless spirit particles is not as simple as Luo Hong understood in the early days. Its effect on the silver runes is not destructive, but rather rewriting and distorting. It did not erase the silver runes, but randomly added one or even several strokes. The North Pole Yuangang is also a collection of special spirit particles, and its characteristics can be said to coincide with the formless spirit particles to a certain extent. In Luo Hong's research, the spirit particles of the North Pole Yuangang showed a strong dependence on other spirit particles. Yes, it is precisely because of the dependence that those magic weapons that were crushed into slag in the North Pole Yuangang were not shredded by the external silver threads, but because the spirit particles contained in the magic weapons were attached to many North Pole spirit particles, causing them to expand suddenly, directly destroying the material structure of the magic weapons at the atomic level. So to be precise, those magic weapons were shattered from the inside, and they were directly shattered into atoms, becoming invisible to the eyes of the spirit. From the perspective of the theory of cultivation, both should be attributed to the law of chaos. From the perspective of scientific theory, both are playing with the surge of entropy. From the perspective of easy understanding, both are called forced feeding. But no matter from which perspective, the two have the possibility of benign fusion. Of course, the possibility of this is extremely low. Under normal circumstances, either one of them devours the other, or the characteristics of both sides are played out together. In order to make the characteristics of the two spirit particles still expressively after fusion, there must be external conditions. Luo Hong has not found this condition yet, but as long as the theory is feasible, he believes it will not be too difficult. And this first step starts with observing Zyojin touching a trace of the North Pole Yuangang. The process of collecting data cannot be completed in one go, and Luo Hong did not wait, stretched out his hand, and pulled the flesh-crowned black snake in front of him. Why did you ask me to catch a black shadow snake? You can't possibly want to cultivate it as a spirit beast, right? Oh, no, if you take it, you should make it into a demon beast. It's no wonder that the main body looks down on this snake. After all, this snake's innate magical power is not suitable for the spirit child to play. The black-robed Luo Hong was released by Luo Hong at some point, and at this time he was looking at the black shadow snake with a fiery look. The innate magical power of this snake? Luo Hong muttered and recalled that he had caught this black shadow snake in the demon suppression tower of Kunwu Mountain. It was only at the 6th or 7th level of cultivation, and it should not have attracted the interest of the incarnation. This demon snake has only two innate magical powers. One is the poison that can kill the flesh of a Yuanying cultivator instantly, and the other is the ability to sneak into the shadows and restrain its breath. This snake's lurking ability is quite useful. It is only at level 6 or 7, but it can hide from the big-headed monster of the Yi family. It can be said to be extremely powerful. If I can integrate it into my magic, when my main body enters or leaves a dangerous place, I can hide in your shadow. Isn't it much more convenient? Black-robed Luo Hong nodded repeatedly, as if he had seen those opponents who were tricked by this trick. Good guy, incarnation. You finally exert your subjective initiative and shine for me. This wave is beyond words. You must support. The surprise on Luo Hong's face flashed, and then he said very seriously, do you need my support for anything? No, just give me the snake. It's just a small project. Black-robed Luo Hong waved his hand, took the black shadow snake, and returned to the portable jade mansion. After looking forward to the results of the incarnation for a while, Luo Hong suddenly looked solemn and silent. After frowning and thinking for a while, he suddenly had a flash of inspiration, and took off his clothes in an instant. On his chest, 3 green feathers were printed like tattoos. Luo Hong reached out and gently stroked them, not feeling the texture of the feathers at all, only his own skin, as if the 3 feathers had merged perfectly with him. Although he was very confident in completing the task of Yaoshan Kunpeng, Luo Hong was used to making preparations for such life-threatening matters. So, he immediately prepared to investigate. When the magic power flowed through, there was nothing unusual about Kunpeng's feathers. When the divine sense swept through, Kunpeng's feathers also did not react at all. It was not until Luo Hong stirred up his blood and ki that the spiritual light on Kunpeng's feathers lit up, and gradually lines of silver tadpole characters emerged. As expected of a true spirit, he can already use silver tadpole characters freely. No wonder a small realm like the human world can't even do anything with a claw. After sighing, Luo Hong was not happy that the majestic blood and ki could attract Kunpeng's feathers. After all, this just proved that the 3 green feathers were deeply rooted in his body. Seeing that each Kunpeng feather had a different line of silver tadpole text, Luo Hong couldn't help but feel curious, thinking that he might be able to learn from him and refine a new talisman. Simply using his own blood and ki to activate the Kunpeng feathers was extremely consuming, so Luo Hong quickly stopped this stupid behavior, then pinched his fingers with one hand, summoned the Eye of Blood Raw, and used his magical power to activate the green feather to manifest. Luo Hong was already familiar with the analysis of silver tadpole text. After just one day of sitting cross-legged, he had comprehended a small part of the content of the first silver tadpole text on the first Kunpeng feather. Although he didn't know the whole picture, Luo Hong was sure that it was related to the changes in the mysterious skills, because he comprehended some flavors of the non-phase fusion talisman. I think the silver tadpole text on this green feather is the source of the strange fusion of Kunpeng feathers in my body. After muttering to himself, Luo Hong gave up the first one and began to comprehend the first silver tadpole text on the second Kunpeng feather. PS. Make sure you are fully present and modify the repeated 500 words immediately. Chapter 731 False Infiltration. The silver tadpole pattern on the second Kunpeng feather was easier to comprehend. After only analyzing 30% to 40%, Luo Hong sensed the breath of thunder magic. Obviously, if Luo Hong did not find Luo Hao for Yaoshan Kunpeng within the time limit, this feather would be triggered, and the Kunpeng true thunder contained in it would be enough to make Luo Hong disappear into ashes. When it came to the third feather, Luo Hong had just comprehended it for a moment, and then he showed a look of doubt, and then frowned, and said to himself, 10,000 worlds swallowing Yuan Gong. What does it mean? Could it be this is the reward after I complete the task? Luo Hong thought for a while, and felt that he should not be too arbitrary, but this great gift was in front of him. How could he ignore it? He just gritted his teeth for a moment, then stretched out his hand, and grabbed the cup of enlightenment tea in his hand, and drank it all without saying a word. Suddenly, it was like a clear air pouring into his head, and Luo Hong's soul seemed to tremble and fluctuate at a high speed. When he looked at the silver tadpole pattern on the third feather again, he couldn't help but feel a sudden enlightenment. The speed of comprehension, which was originally like a tortoise's crawl, instantly increased by dozens of times. This wonderful state of constantly communicating with the world and gaining insights made Luo Hong immersed in it, and he completely forgot the years in the mansion. Time passed like a white horse, and 8 years had passed since Luo Hong announced his retreat. In these 8 years, Wang Jianmen has been growing at a very fast speed every moment. With the help of Luo Hong's reputation, the area of Shuanqin Mountain within a radius of 10,000 miles has become the direct sphere of influence of Wang Jianmen. Except for a few who moved away on their own initiative, the original immortal cultivation families in this area have been retained as affiliated forces of Wang Jianmen. These immortal cultivation families have to pay a sum of spirit stones and prescribed offerings every year, and the young children in the family who are suitable for cultivation have to set aside a part of them, waiting for the upcoming 10-year period, to worship as disciples of Wang Jianmen. It can be said that Luo Hong completely copied the model of the former Yu Kingdom's immortal cultivation world, allowing the immortal cultivation families of half of Guangnan Prefecture to provide nutrients for Wang Jianmen. What these immortal families gained was absolute order and security. At least before Luo Hong's reputation faded, no cultivator dared to attack the disciples of Wang Jianmen and their affiliated families. But even so, Wang Jianmen was still very weak. Although there were many talented people among the key refining disciples, and many of them were even called geniuses, they were simply not good enough in terms of high-level cultivators. At this time, a few Yuanian cultivators could easily destroy Wanjianmen, as long as they could break through the Wanjian formation that Luo Hong had laid without much thought. Therefore, Ziling had a very difficult time in the past 8 years, almost walking on thin ice. After all, there was only so much meat in Guangnan Prefecture. If Wanjianmen ate more, the other immortal families would have to eat less. Even if Luo Hong's reputation was there to support them, if they were forced too much, they were not alone, and could not find connections to use. Ziling constantly weighed the pros and cons of expansion or stability every day. If her mother was not the head of Miaoinman, and she had not been influenced by her since she was a child, she would not be able to do this job well. After dealing with a bunch of sect affairs, Ziling, who was exhausted, waved her hand and dismissed Wang Hu from the hall. Seeing the sturdy man looking back every 3 steps, Ziling felt exhausted and had a headache. Although she had used the mysterious skills of Miaoin sect to conceal her true appearance, her unreasonable body was still charming the creatures around her all the time, and was not under her control. Even though Wang Hu was a giant and cultivator of the same realm, after years and months, his heart had been placed on the headmaster Ziling, who looked ordinary. I can't stay. I must leave after 10 years. Ziling didn't like the wandering life, but she didn't have the cultivation realm to live in seclusion, nor the ability to control her natural charming body, so she could only move to a new cave every once in a while. Otherwise, if there were too many cultivators affected by her natural charming body, she would inevitably be involved in the storm. Standing up, Ziling walked into a small teleportation array behind the screen, while thinking about where to go after leaving Wanjian sect. With a flash of spiritual light, Ziling appeared in a luxurious house. This was the residence built by her headmaster using his power for personal gain. Because many precious spiritual materials were used, the concentration of spiritual energy was 3 or 4 times higher than that of the outside world, making it an excellent place for cultivation. Looking at the huge cold jade bed in the house, Ziling couldn't help but curl up a sly smile at the corner of her mouth. Brother Luo is so happy as a hands-off shopkeeper, it's not too much for me to take advantage of him. Just as Ziling was about to start her daily practice, she suddenly saw a strange figure from the corner of her eyes. Her body froze at first, and then she immediately reached out to grab the jade card at her waist. But, I don't want to commit murder in vain. Please don't get excited. As a male voice sounded, Ziling's mind suddenly calmed down, as if she had forgotten to grab the jade card at her waist. Her arm froze in midair, and her eyes became confused. Fortunately, this abnormality only lasted for a breath, and after a breath, Ziling's eyes became smart again, but she didn't dare to act rashly. She turned her head and looked at the strange figure in the room. She saw that this person was a middle-aged man, wearing a purple and gold cassock, with no hair on his head, holding a demon-subduing stick, and looking at Ziling with a serious face. Buddhist? After seeing the appearance of the intruder, Ziling immediately whispered in confusion, and then frowned and asked, "Who are you? My Wanjian sect has no communication with the Buddhist sect. Master, do you have any misunderstandings?" When the divine sense swept over the other party, it was like a drop in the ocean, and there was no feedback. Ziling knew that the other party was a great master with a cultivation level far higher than hers. At that moment, she only hoped to delay time and find a glimmer of hope. As for the so-called misunderstanding, she knew it was impossible. "I'm not here for the sect's business. I just want to ask you if you know the whereabouts of Mr. Luo. I have something important to ask him." Although the middle-aged monk's words were not hostile, his face was still extremely serious, without any compassion of a monk, which made Ziling feel cold. "The great elder of our sect is in seclusion in the mountains. If the senior wants to see him, he can hand over a visiting card, or send a letter by flying sword. Why do you have to do such a rude thing?" Ziling tested him angrily, and shouted bad luck. She now understood completely that she was just protecting Luo Hong from disaster. "Dona Ziling, please don't lie to me. Over the past 3 years, I have already explored every inch of Shuankin Mountain with my spiritual sense, and there is no trace of Dona Luo. Even if Dona Luo is really in seclusion, He is definitely not in Shuankin Mountain. After saying that, the middle-aged monk looked at Zealing for a moment without changing his expression, and suddenly sighed. Forget it, matters of the master sect cannot be lenient. Donor Zealing, please forgive me for offending you. Chapter 732, 10,000 Worlds Devouring Yuan Gong. Upon hearing this, Zealing's hair stood on end. This was obviously going to kill her. For a moment, Zealing felt that she was wronged. She had told the truth. Luo Hong had clearly told her that he was in seclusion in the mountains. This monk was not very capable and could not find Luo Hong, but he wanted to vent his anger on her. He really wanted to die unwillingly. At this point, Zealing was not willing to sit and wait for death. She urged her magic power to fight hard. Stubborn. However, the shout pierced her soul like a steel needle, causing the magic power she had just raised to suddenly dissipate. For a moment, Zealing could only watch the doom coming. The desire to survive drove her thoughts wildly, and in just a moment, a layer of fine and fragrant wet beads appeared on Zealing's forehead. 3 years. Yes. He has been here for 3 years. Finally, before the middle-aged monk killed her, Zealing thought of a way to save herself. A brilliant light flashed by, and Zealing's appearance suddenly changed. She actually revealed her peerless true appearance. Her skin was as white as frost and snow, her eyes were as clear as autumn water, and she looked like the goddess of a Luo river. Her eyebrows were slightly wrinkled, and her slender waist was pitiful. Why did she need more colors for her purple sleeves? With a turn of her white wrist, all the beauties were lowered. She was an ethereal fairy that was beyond reach. This woman should not come to the mortal world. At this moment, the charm of Zealing's body suddenly increased, and the seeds that were originally buried in the middle-aged monk's heart took root and sprouted. But, please help me practice. Without any hesitation, the middle-aged monk flashed in front of Zealing, put his palm on her shoulder, and rolled her into the escape light without saying a word. In an instant, there was only a piece of jade plaque that had been smashed to pieces on the ground. In the Wentian cave, Luo Hong, who was practicing, suddenly frowned and stopped practicing immediately with the thought, Dao I Ming. Before the call fell, the maid puppet appeared on the top of the green peak. Are you going to go out? She asked crisply. Yes, someone is looking for me outside, Luo Hong said solemnly. He just sensed that the soul summoning token he gave to Zealing was broken. There was a soul he sealed in it. Before entering the cave, he and Zealing agreed that if there was an emergency to find him, he would use a secret method to activate the token. If the matter was so urgent that it endangered her life, he would directly crush the token. Obviously, Zealing was in a life and death crisis. Do you want to take your apprentice with you? Ming asked without any sadness or joy. No need, she can form a pill within this year. Let her continue to retreat here. Luo Hong shook his head and decided to leave Lu Zhu behind. Okay, give me your hand. Ming stretched out his right arm to Luo Hong. The matter was urgent, and Luo Hong grabbed Ming's palm without any hesitation. As soon as the nerves felt the cold touch, the two of them disappeared in a forbidden light. When they reappeared, they were already above Shuankin Mountain. With a thought, Luo Hong used his spiritual sense to scan the entire Shuankin Mountain, but did not find Zealing's figure. He only found the soul guiding card he gave in a luxurious training room. Damn it, Zealing can't be lost. With a frown, Luo Hong immediately spread his spiritual sense violently and instantly covered an area of more than 3,000 miles. Suddenly, he sensed Zealing's breath thousands of miles away. Except for being a little messy, there was no sign of weakness. With this result, Luo Hong was certain in his heart, and then his eyes rose with anger. The four-sided flying boots under his feet flashed with spiritual light, and a thread of light suddenly reached the horizon. Ming, who was standing aside, looked around with a little curiosity, and the corners of his mouth slightly raised. His figure actually scattered into many cherry blossoms and disappeared without a trace. Master Bizin, who was thousands of miles away, didn't know that he was in great trouble. After controlling Zealing, he flew out of the mountain protection formation of one giant men. 8 years ago, after taking on the task of the Great Elder, Bizin quickly lurked near Shuankin Mountain, and even set up a base in a dense forest thousands of miles away with great caution. After all, it was rumored that the monk surnamed Luo who destroyed the Sima family had the cultivation of the late Yuan, and the consciousness of the general late Yuan could cover a radius of thousands of miles. Bizin's arrangement was quite safe. In the following years, because of fear of Luo Hong's reputation, Bizin did not act rashly, but used the Buddhist mysterious skills to change his appearance, inquired among the outer immortal cultivation families, and never approached Shuanqin Mountain easily. In this way, more than 4 years passed, and it seemed that Luo Hong, who had disappeared, gave Bizin the courage to sneak into one giant men. Although his cultivation was only at the peak of the middle stage of the nascent soul, the sharpness of Luo Hong's spiritual awareness would be greatly reduced during his retreat. Coupled with his own hidden magical power, it was not impossible for him to sneak into the Wanjian sect to investigate. Although Luo Hong recruited many casual cultivators, when he opened the mountain gate, there was no wild array master among them. Therefore, although the Wanjian sect's mountain protection array was created by Luo Hong, because there was no one to preside over it, Bizin still found a flaw, and sneaked into Shuanqin Mountain. In the following 3 years, Bizin had been trying to lock the location of Luo Hong's retreat, in order to make the next plan. However, Luo Hong seemed to have left Shuanqin Mountain long ago, so Bizin could not find any trace. Even if he secretly stared at the female headmaster of the Wanjian sect, he got nothing. Under no circumstances could Bizin have to show up and interrogate Ziling, but he didn't know, since when this woman had disturbed his Buddhist heart, making it difficult for him to kill her. Fortunately, the Pure Land sect did not prohibit the practice of happy Zen, and Ming Fei even appeared in the temple. So, he immediately kidnapped Ziling, and secretly arranged to teleport her to a station thousands of miles away. Stinky monk, where are you taking me? Let me go. It was not unexpected for Ziling to develop into this. She was very familiar with her own innate magical powers. Logically, Bizin should not have reacted like this. In the Chaos Star Sea, Wu Chao of Jiyan Island and Wen Shinran of Liug Palace both coveted her, but they did not choose to use force. Naturally, it was not because these two were gentlemen. In fact, both of them were cruel and lustful. But due to the influence of Ziling's body magical powers, both of them felt pity for her. So normally, Bizin should protect Ziling in every possible way at this time, but he looked like he wanted to practice dual cultivation with Ziling immediately. There is only one reason for such a difference. That is, Bizin looks like a human, but in fact, she is a demon. The charm of the female body actually makes the affected cultivators subtly regard Ziling as their favorite woman. Therefore, Ziling is known as the most beautiful woman in Chaos Star Sea. After all, she is already beautiful, and with the lover filter, she is naturally invincible. Bizin must have been affected, which means that in his own opinion, his actions are what he does to his favorite woman. P.S. It is both for security and anti-piracy. Brothers, spare me, I will change it immediately. Oops, I didn't write about the Wanji swallowing Yuan Gong, so embarrassing. Chapter 733, Boundless Dharma. Love her, then ravage her. This is the most real thought in Bizin's heart, and it is also the reason why he treats Ziling so roughly. Ziling is also unlucky. Originally, if she used this method, she could escape danger, if it were most people, but Bizin was crazy. I said that I want Ziling to help me practice and ascend to paradise together. Although Bizin had always had a serious face before, his temperament was still in line with that of a high monk. However, at this time, he had a wicked smile on his face, which made people think of a man-eating demon. Climb, you big-headed ghost. With a sudden roar from the top of his head, the tall ancient trees around Bizin seemed to be shattered in an instant, as if they were cut by a sharp blade. His heart shrank suddenly, and Bizin's telepathy, which he had practiced for many years, suddenly sounded the alarm, making him immediately realize that the doom was coming. Without thinking, Bizin threw the demon subduing stick in his hand over his head, and then pulled off the cassock on his body, pouring magic power into it from his fingertips. Suddenly, the demon subduing staff emitted a 1,000-foot golden light, which completely expelled the surrounding spiritual energy. Although this treasure did not condense a spiritual shield, its protective power was actually quite strong. At this time, no matter whether it was a spell or a magic weapon, once it entered the golden treasure light, its spiritual energy would be quickly expelled, thus greatly weakening its attack power. In addition, the material of the demon subduing staff was extraordinary. It only took 2 or 3 breaths to make the attack of a cultivator in the late nascent soul stage become weak and powerless. Unfortunately, what Bizon encountered was not an ordinary magic weapon, but the divine-edged shadowless sword. I saw dozens of sword marks quickly break into the golden light, and they rushed straight to the demon subduing staff without dodging or avoiding. There was no sound of thunder and fire when the 2 sides touched each other, but it was like a phantom interlaced, without any movement. But the next moment, the golden light suddenly dimmed, and Bizon's demon subduing staff broke into more than 10 pieces. The divine-edged shadowless sword continued to cut down without stopping, and was immediately intercepted by the purple gold cassock. The demon subduing staff was destroyed, and Bizon groaned due to the backlash, but then he used his magic power to suppress his injuries, put his hands together and said, "The Buddha's Dharma is boundless." This seemed to be a certain spell. The purple gold cassock that unfolded after the 4 words suddenly became illusory, and Bizon saw Luo Hong in the air through it, with eyes full of anger. The ancestor of Wan Jian was actually in Shuanqin Mountain. While Bizon understood it instantly, he couldn't help but doubt in his heart. He believed that he had not missed anything, and Luo Hong should not be in Shuanqin Mountain. Such a contradictory fact made Bizon's thoughts run wildly, and he came up with a guess in just a moment. Is there an extremely secret realm in Shuanqin Mountain? In an instant, Bizon felt that, whether it was the destruction of the Sima family or the sudden establishment of the Wan Jian sect, everything had a reasonable explanation. But what Bizon really cared about was not these. Although the secret realm was good, the Pure Land sect, as one of the 3 major Buddhist sects, did not lack similar resources. The only thing he was concerned about was that Luo Hong might have known the secret of the blood ginseng, but he didn't make it public, just to hide the secret realm. This was a huge threat to the Pure Land sect, and must be eliminated. In just a blink of an eye, Bizon had already made up her mind to die. He had to pass this news back to the sect. At this time, the Shenfeng shadowless sword had cut into the purple gold cassock, but this thin layer of cloth was as difficult to cross as thousands of rivers and mountains. Space magic, within reach. With just one glance, Luo Hong saw the doorway of the opponent's magic weapon. The illusory cassock actually compressed a huge amount of space. Any magic weapon that entered it would be temporarily trapped. Dare to play with space magic in front of me? Luo Hong frowned. Originally, he didn't take this monk in the middle stage of the nascent soul seriously, so he just sacrificed 12 Shenfeng shadowless swords. Seeing that he had many magic weapons, he immediately put away his contempt. He was arrogant, but in fact he urged the power of heaven and earth to suppress him. Suddenly, many cracks appeared on the illusory purple gold robe, as if a mirror was about to break. Knowing that the purple gold robe could not hold him back for long, Bizon looked at Luo Hong with wide eyes, and slowly said 4 words with blood on the corner of her mouth. It's not too late to turn back. As soon as the voice fell, an invisible force rolled up Luo Hong's nascent soul. Soul bewitching spell. I'll add some ingredients for you. Luo Hong was also angry and laughed. Not only did his nascent soul resist Bizon's spell without moving, but he also added an extreme passion spell. Soul bewitching spells are originally to control lust. If the extreme passion spell is added, the power will be increased several times. Therefore, in just a moment, Bizon knelt down without caring about anything, kowtowed hard, and shouted, "I was wrong." Seeing this strange scene in the fight, Ziling, who had been hiding 100 feet away, was dumbfounded. At this moment, the purple gold cassock suddenly turned from illusion to reality, and 12 divine swords pierced out from it, turning this treasure into a pile of rags. Faster than the divine swords was the power of heaven and earth that Luo Hong activated. Almost at the moment when the purple gold cassock was torn to pieces, Bizon melted into the earth with a dung. Humph, the reaction is fast, but it's useless. Although Bizon had been crushed into a pulp, Luo Hong snorted coldly without any joy on his face. It turned out that Bizon broke free from the influence of the spell at the moment when the power of heaven and earth pressed him. Knowing that he was powerless, He decisively abandoned his physical body, and his Yuanying teleported out of his body, temporarily avoiding the fate of falling. But under Luo Hong's absolute superiority in consciousness, Bizin's nascent soul had nowhere to hide. Before he could perform several teleportation magics, he found that a circle of net bags suddenly appeared around him. Falling into the colorful bag, Bizin's nascent soul had no way to escape, but Luo Hong did not see despair on his face, but instead had an almost crazy smile. Before Luo Hong could figure out what the conspiracy was, Bizin brazenly blew up his nascent soul. At the same time, a golden stream of light suddenly shot up from the meat mud, but it was about to disappear in the sky. Seeing this scene, Luo Hong knew that Bizin was using himself as bait to let the thing in the golden stream of light escape. If it were an ordinary late nascent soul cultivator, he would be really calculated by this monk, but Luo Hong was proficient in the 5-element escape technique, and the golden stream of light could not be faster than him. However, just as Luo Hong was about to catch up, a large piece of cherry blossom suddenly appeared beside him, and Yingming's figure condensed out. The maid puppet casually stretched out her hand and grabbed, and the golden light in the sky disappeared. When she spread her hands, a relic appeared in her palm. Obviously, the thing in the golden light was nothing else but this round and full relic. Luo Hong looked at Yingming in surprise. To be honest, he did not understand the other party's method. This is also considered a move, Yingming suddenly said very cleverly. Chapter 734, Wang Jianmen's turnaround. What a loss. What a huge loss. A being at the level of a spirit transformation only managed to do such a small thing in one move. Luo Hong was so heartbroken that he trembled. Ahem, forget it this time, but don't do it next time. It will only count if I ask for help. Luo Hong didn't want this easy to handle thug beside him to be wasted, so he immediately set the rules. Oh, I see. Do you want this meatball? Yingming also thought it was reasonable, nodded and agreed, then took a look at the things in his hand, and handed it to Luo Hong. Of course I want it. Nonsense. Without the opportunity to let Yingming take action, Luo Hong would naturally get some benefits. The relic of the Buddhist cultivator in the middle stage of the nascent soul is also a good thing. After all, there are very few high-level Buddhist cultivators, and things are precious, because they are rare. As for why Bizin risked her life to escape with the relic, Luo Hong knew the answer the first time she saw it. The relic contained a fragment of Bizin's soul. Luo Hong scanned it with his spiritual sense, and knew that it contained a piece of information. In order to keep the secret of the blood ginseng, they did not hesitate to go to war against a cultivator in the late nascent soul stage. What exactly is the Pure Land sect planning? Luo Hong's thoughts turned, and he felt that the matter was not simple. Although using blood ginseng to secretly harm the cultivators of Guangnan Prefecture and refine magic tools was hated, the Pure Land sect was powerful. Even if this matter was exposed, no one would come to these monks to find bad luck. Moreover, Dajin was not only the righteous path, the demon path was more direct. Things like extracting souls to refine treasures and killing people to raise evil spirits happened all the time, and no righteous people rose up to attack them. Therefore, even if the Pure Land sect's mess was made public, it would only make those monks who claimed to be compassionate lose some face, and there would be no substantial loss. It was unreasonable to deal with a cultivator in the late nascent soul stage for a little face. But the facts will not lie. Since the problem is not that the blood ginseng harms people, it must be those magic tools. When destroying the Sima family, Luo Hong also obtained some finished magic tools they refined. They were ball-shaped magic tools with exquisite patterns, and the surface was covered with lacquer. It was impossible to tell that they were made of monks' skulls. Even Sima Zhao didn't know what the magic tool called Micho Bowl was used for. He was only responsible for refining it. Luo Hong had tried to drive it before, but he didn't understand the trick. He originally wanted to search the soul of the monk who kidnapped Ziling to find the answer, but he didn't expect the other party to be so decisive. Intuition told Luo Hong that this matter was far from over. Brother Luo, this time my life is really hanging by a thread, you have to compensate me well. After Bizin fell, the restrictions he left on Ziling were broken by themselves. The peerless beauty immediately fled to Luo Hong's vicinity, full of complaints. But before Luo Hong responded, She glanced at Yang Ming and continued, "Of course, I will never forget Brother Luo's life-saving grace. How about this, Brother Luo? You can erase the remaining 2 years for me. I will return Wang Jianmen to Brother Luo now." "Just kidding. Who wants to be the head of the sect who works hard and is in danger of life? Fairy Zealing will not serve." Miss Zealing, don't be afraid. It is indeed Luo's negligence that gave these bulldonkeys an opportunity. But Luo promises that this is the first and last time. I will rearrange the mountain protection formation of Wang Jianmen to ensure your safety. In addition, Luo is not easy to bully. Since these bulldonkeys have come to the door, Luo will naturally fight back. So Miss Zealing, don't worry, these bulldonkeys will never have the time to attack you again. Although he successfully obtained the Enlightenment Tea Tree, Wentian Cave Mansion was no longer of any value to Luo Hong, but the appearance of Yang Ming broke his original plan. Luo Hong actually didn't care much about the Wanjian sect. Just as he said, this was just a casual move. His original plan was to give Wanjian sect some resources for cultivation, and then let it go. He would come back after a few hundred years to take back the sword cultivators who had cultivated to the Giant stage. Luo Hong didn't expect to gather enough Giant and sword cultivators to unlock the Wanjian diagram at once, but by then he would have probably broken through to the Shenhua stage. Using these Giant and sword cultivators as seeds, he could easily give birth to a sufficient number of Giant and sword cultivators after returning to the Huangfeng Valley with the extremely rich spiritual environment. After Yang Ming appeared, it would be quite easy to enter the Wentian Cave Mansion with her restriction authority. Luo Hong could build a special teleportation array in the Wanjian sect, so that the disciples of the Wanjian sect could also enjoy the current treatment of Luo. In this way, the Wanjian sect would truly have the resources to grow into a large sect. Luo Hong's expectations for it became higher, so he was naturally more willing to spend more effort. At this point, Zealing had no choice but to sigh and pray that the remaining 2 years would pass quickly. "Brother Luo, who is this Taoist friend?" Yang Ming had been looking at Zealing since she came over. Zealing could not help but ask. "Oh, this Taoist friend Yang Ming is a good friend that Luo has just made. She has been in seclusion for many years and may have become unfamiliar with social interactions. This is Fairy Zealing, who is..." Luo Hong was introducing them when Yang Ming suddenly interrupted. "This Taoist friend, can you take off your clothes? You are not right." Luo Hong was shocked. What kind of lewd words are these? Seeing Zealing retreating in fear, Yang Ming seemed to realize that what he said was inappropriate and hurriedly explained, "Don't misunderstand, Taoist friend Zealing. I just saw that your aura is somewhat close to a kind of Dharma body I know, so I couldn't help but want to verify it. I'm born with a charming body. What is there to verify?" Zealing stared at Yang Ming with disbelief. Although a natural seductive body is rare in the world, it is not enough to make a cultivator who is at least in the nascent soul stage so excited. No, the seductive technique is just a supplementary magical power of that body. If you really have the body of a beautiful woman, you can practice magic skills at a rapid pace. Yang Ming once again told the strange cultivator who just met a big secret without any ulterior motives. "What? You are not lying to me, are you?" Zealing still didn't believe it. She had been practicing the skills of the Miaoin sect. Although it was not a righteous way, it was not a perfect magic skill, so she never felt that her body was so magical. Of course, as long as you try to refine the magic energy, special magic patterns will appear on your body. I still have a little magic energy here. Do you want to try it? Yang Ming patted his belly and said. Zealing looked at Luo Hong with some interest. Well, I think this can be tried. Luo Hong looked at Zealing's proud figure carefully, smiled wickedly and nodded. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 735, Leaking Some Benefits. Although Yang Ming's proposal was very tempting, Zealing did not take the risk after all, so Luo Hong naturally did not have the pleasure of seeing her. Luo Hong was not disappointed about this. After all, He was just joking. Although Ziling's natural charm was strong, it was limited by her own cultivation level. At present, she could only affect cultivators in the nascent soul stage at most. With Luo Hong's spirit of transformation, he would not be deceived by her at all. In this way, he would not have the lover filter, so he would not be attracted to her. After returning to Wang Jianmen with Ziling, Luo Hong immediately announced the news of his coming out of retreat, and summoned the 7 Jiandan cultivators in the sect, except Ziling to the Jian Qichang Xiao Hall. In the hall, Luo Hong sat at the head, looking solemnly at the 7 people below. Among these 7 people, Luo Hong only recognized Wang Hu, and the other 6 were all casual cultivators recruited by Ziling after his retreat. Luo Hong agreed with her decision. After all, although there was a shortage of foundation building cultivators, even with the original conditions, the best of the first batch of disciples should have broken through to the foundation building stage in another 10 or 20 years, not to mention that Luo Hong was about to give them a cheat. In contrast, Wang Jianmen could not cultivate Jiandan cultivators in a short period of time. There was a window period of at least 100 years, which could not be waited for anyway. Therefore, it became necessary to recruit Jiandan casual cultivators from surrounding areas. With a sweep of her spiritual sense, Luo Hong had a clear understanding of the cultivation of these 6 people without alarming them. To be able to cultivate to the Jiandan stage as a casual cultivator, it was naturally that they had both talent and opportunity. However, these 6 people had some unstable foundations, and the cultivation methods they practiced were messy. It could be said that they had no chance of breaking through to the nascent soul stage. When Luo Hong scanned the 7 people in the hall, although Wang Hu and others kept lowering their eyebrows and nodding their heads, pretending to be extremely respectful, they would secretly glance at Luo Hong from time to time, and their expressions could not hide their impatience. No matter where the Jiandan cultivators are, they are always standing at the top of the pyramid of the world of immortal cultivation. The reason why these casual cultivators are willing to abandon their free and easy days and come to Shuanqin Mountain from thousands of miles away to join the Wanjian sect is to let Luo Hong give them some pointers and make further progress in their cultivation. Therefore, they all look forward to Luo Hong's attitude towards them. Looking at these people's little actions, Luo Hong couldn't help but think of the days when he was Li Huoyuan's disciple, and he also thought of ways to ask for benefits. Luo Hong had no bad feelings about this. After all, if you want the horse to run, you have to feed the horse with grass. This is human nature. Ziling will leave in 2 years, and Wanjian sect will eventually be handed over to these people. After the silence in the hall lasted for a while, Luo Hong suddenly asked, Wang Guardian, how long have you been stuck in the early stage of Jiandan? Oh, I'm not talented. I broke through to the Jiandan realm when I was over 100 years old, and then I was stuck in the early stage for over 100 years. Wang Hu answered respectfully, while secretly guessing the intention of Luo Hong's question. After being stuck for over 100 years, his cultivation is still so far from the middle stage of Jiandan. I'm afraid that this person's immortal path in this life can only go here. The other 6 Jiandan guardians secretly evaluated in their hearts. I heard from Ziling that you changed to practice the Xiangang sword art of our sect. Is it going smoothly when you practice it? Luo Hong continued to ask without changing his expression. I'm ashamed. The Xiangang sword art is unfathomable. Although I have been comprehending it almost every day in the past 8 years, I have only cultivated the first 5 levels. Wang Hu was nervous and bowed lower. Good fellow, it seems that his comprehension is not that good. The other 6 people shook their heads secretly in their hearts. After all, according to Wang Hu's cultivation level at the early stage of Jiandan, even if he could not practice to the 7th level, he would not be stuck at the 5th level. As for whether it was a problem with the cultivation method, no one considered it at all, or it was not necessary to consider it at all. The 81 sword techniques passed down by Wang Jianmen were not kept secret for them, the Jiandan guardians. With the vision of Jiandan cultivators, it was impossible for them not to choose the most suitable cultivation method for themselves. Luo Hong also confirmed this after using his spiritual sense to explore Wang Hu's cultivation level. The meridians in his body that had been connected were quite consistent with the Xiangang sword technique, and his personality was also in line with the spiritual cultivation method of this sword technique. It can be said that when Wang Hu practiced the Xiangang sword technique, whether it was rebuilding his mana, improving the level of the cultivation method, or training his primordial spirit and nurturing his sword intent, it was easier than normal. Since the objective conditions were all above the standard, the only reason why he was still not good was that he was a subjective loser. However, this was just right for Luo Hong. With a thought, a cup of spiritual wine suddenly appeared in front of Luo Hong. He shook his wrist and the white jade wine cup flew in front of Wang Hu. Drink it. Without much explanation, Luo Hong ordered directly. After all, Wang Hu had been in the world of immortal cultivation for 200 years. Although his aptitude was not very good, he was still familiar with people's words and expressions. At that moment, he knew that the opportunity had come, and he grabbed the wine cup and drank it all without saying a word. The cold wine entered his stomach, and the spiritual energy gushed out. The key was that his soul trembled, and the key points of the sword tactics that he had not been able to comprehend for many years suddenly became so simple. The 6 people on the side saw that after Wang Hu drank the spiritual wine, he immediately stood there in a daze and did not refine the spiritual energy in his stomach. They couldn't help but feel strange. They didn't dare to make a noise in front of Luo Hong, and they exchanged glances quite diligently for a while. When they were wondering, suddenly a spiritual energy wave came from Wang Hu, and his Xiangang sword art broke through to the 6th level. Before everyone could be surprised, the sword energy on Wang Hu's body became more and more intense. In just a dozen breaths, he broke through another level and pushed the Xiangang sword art to the same level as his own cultivation. Now, everyone looked at Wang Hu with envy. Although they also joined the Wanjian sect, they did not change their cultivation method. After all, the 81 sword techniques of the Wanjian sect were quite profound. It would not only take time to change them, but also the risk of being stuck by a bottleneck was very high. They were not like Wang Hu who lacked inheritance, so they would not take risks easily. But now that they saw Wang Hu successfully change to the Xiangang sword art, they couldn't help but feel jealous. After all, if possible, who wouldn't want to practice a powerful and promising top-level technique? After a few dozen breaths, Wang Hu's breath gradually calmed down, and then he saluted with a face full of ecstasy. "Thank you for the wine. Well, take this jade slip. From now on you will be responsible for the affairs of Zuxan Pavilion." Luo Hong waved lightly, and a green jade slip flew out, and then he turned his eyes and fell on a white-haired old man next to him, throwing out a medicine bottle and saying, "I heard from Zealing that Song Protector had made great contributions before, so this Yuan pill in the bottle is given to you. This medicine is strong, you should take it on the spot." After the old man surnamed Song thanked him in ecstasy, he took the pill as ordered. As soon as the elixir entered his stomach, the old man surnamed Song showed a look of pain on his face, and his body trembled constantly, as if the violent power of the medicine would tear the meridians in his body apart in the next moment. At this moment, Luo Hong pointed his finger, and a beam of emerald green magic light went straight into the chest of the old man surnamed Song. His expression eased a lot for a short time. About half an incense stick later, the spiritual energy that had been constantly overflowing from the old man surnamed Song suddenly changed direction and poured into his danshan. Seeing this scene, even Wang Hu, who had just benefited, had red eyes. This old man actually broke through to the middle stage of Jiandan on the spot. Chapter 736, Set Off. Ziling's How. The contents recorded in the Emerald Jade Slip are the formula of enlightenment wine that Luo Hong learned from Yingming after carefully preparing the formula of low-grade enlightenment tea. Most of the raw materials used are not rare. As long as there are enough spirit stones in Dajin, there is hope that they can be gathered. Luo Hong plans to keep 2 pieces of enlightenment tea for Wang Hu and others to brew and drink. Because drinking this wine is a great burden on the Yuan Shen, even for Jiandan cultivators, it takes at least 10 years before taking it again. In addition, this wine can only help to comprehend the exercises, unlike the elixir for fine cultivation, which is a bottomless pit. Therefore, the low-grade enlightenment wine brewed from 2 pieces of tea leaves is enough for Wang Jianmen to use for hundreds of years. As for the Yuan pill, it is one of the ancient pills that Luo Hong obtained from Taping Water Mansion. There are not many, only 6. This pill is extremely strong and is generally used by giant and cultivators in the middle stage to break through the bottleneck. Normally, if giant and cultivators like the old man surnamed Song forcefully take it, they will inevitably end up with broken meridians. Of course, as long as Luo Hong takes action, this is not a problem. Protector Song, the remaining 5 Earth Yuan pills in the medicine bottle will be handed over to you for safekeeping. Later, Luo will set a rule that allows disciples in the sect to exchange contributions for these pills. In addition, the Danwang Pavilion will be handed over to you in the future. In the early stage, the refining of the foundation building pill is the priority. Luo Hong saw that the old man surnamed Song's breath was gradually stabilizing, so he arranged it slowly. Hearing this, the old man surnamed Song stood up immediately and responded excitedly without consolidating his cultivation. At this time, Luo Hong looked at the other 5 people again, all of whom stared at him with burning eyes, and each of them had their thoughts written on their faces. Protector Liu, Protector Gu, I heard that you two are not very willing to obey Ziling's orders. Could it be that you are dissatisfied with Luo? Halfway through the words, Luo Hong's voice suddenly became cold, and he suddenly released his spiritual pressure. The 2 people whose names were called suddenly felt the Death Star shining brightly. They endured the huge spiritual pressure and barely maintained their standing. They said with difficulty, Ancestor, we were just confused for a moment. Please forgive us. Forgive us. Among the 6 giant and cultivators who entered the sect later, only the 2 of them had the cultivation level of the middle giant and period. In addition, they had never really seen Luo Hong, so they were not respectful to Ziling, who had hidden his cultivation level to the early giant and period. However, he did not cheat in disobeying orders, but just pretended to obey and did not try his best. HMPH. With a cold snort, Liu Gu and the other 2's chests were immediately hit by a heavy hammer. They bleed at the same time and took a few steps back. Thank you, Ancestor. Although the pain in their chests was unbearable, the 2 still forced themselves to bow. They understood that, after taking this blow, the matter would be over, which was undoubtedly a blessing in disguise. You 2 will temporarily take charge of the affairs of the transmission hall. Today, we will organize a competition in the sect to select 81 sword masters and decide the 10 great disciples. After a series of kindness and force, even those who were not affected felt a sense of belonging to the Wanjian sect, and they dared not doubt or act rashly towards Luo Hong. Afterwards, Luo Hong assigned them positions one by one and introduced a contribution system. When Liu Gu and the others found that the teaching disciples received the most contributions in the contribution system, they immediately lost even the last bit of resentment. They wished that they would not itch, even if they were hurt, and immediately started working for Luo Hong, so that they could exchange for the Yuan pill as soon as possible. They were by the side when the old man surnamed Song took the medicine, so they naturally knew that the Yuan pill was actually more suitable for them to take. In just a few hours, Luo Hong completely subdued Wang Hu and others. This was not because his methods were so superb, but because his strength advantage was too overwhelming. A little bit of liquid flowing out from the nails was enough to make these giant and monks work hard like crazy. In the following month, Luo Hong first spent time redesigning the formation of the Wanjian sect, and then completed the teleportation formation connecting to the Wentian cave mansion. At this time, the competition organized by Liu Gu and the others also ended not long ago. The strongest person was selected from each sword art, and the 81 sword masters were stuffed into the Wentian cave mansion for a treat by Luo Hong. These disciples had only 2 ways to go after entering, either to cultivate to the foundation building stage within 10 years, or to be demoted to outer disciples after the time limit. And every time a person came out, a new sword master would be added, and this cycle continued. Disciples who successfully built their foundations could build their own caves in Shuangqin Mountain. If they could cultivate to the false pill realm and pay a certain contribution, they could enter the Wentian cave mansion for a treat. Of course, Luo Hong would only tell them that it was a secret place of the sect and would not reveal the matter of the Wentian cave mansion. After resolving internal affairs, Luo Hong was ready to set out to eliminate the threats outside. lest he leave, all his efforts would go to waste. Although he still didn't know what the Pure Land sect was planning, Luo Hong didn't intend to talk about martial ethics. He just wanted to make the Pure Land sect feel pain, so that those bull donkeys would know the consequences of provoking the Wanjian sect. Therefore, Luo Hong was ready to learn from Han Lao Mo and kill all the Yuanying Buddhist cultivators of the Pure Land sect outside. As for the Pure Land sect's Mountain Gate station, Luo Hong would not force his way in. It was not because he was afraid, but because it was unnecessary. In order to achieve a sufficient effect, Luo Hong could not go to Zilingzhou with a big fanfare, otherwise they would retreat back to the Mountain Gate after killing a few bull donkeys. So today, Luo Hong, who had hidden his cultivation to the foundation building stage, came to the Foreign Affairs Hall with Yingming. This hall was specially used to handle affairs between the Wanjian sect and its subordinate forces. The reason why Luo Hong came here was because someone had issued a foreign affairs notice for Zilingzhou. The Wanjian sect had eaten the offerings of those immortal cultivation families, so naturally they had to do things. However, the person who issued the foreign affairs notice this time was not from an immortal cultivation family, and was not even an immortal cultivator. So, you want us to go to your hometown to exorcise the monster? Luo Hong looked at the countryman in front of him and said in a strange tone. He didn't understand how a mortal could come up with hundreds of spirit stones. That's right. That's right. I hope all the immortals will set off quickly so that all the people in our town will not be eaten by the monster. Jiang Tishan was excited, gritting his teeth and said anxiously. If there is anyone who has benefited from the establishment of Wanjianmen, Jiang Tishan is definitely one of them. Since Wanjianmen was just founded, most of the disciples on the mountain are boys in the early stage of key refining. They are far from being able to live without food and drink, so someone needs to buy all the supplies. Jiang Tishan, because he used to be a hyacinth Forlasu, became familiar with Xiling, and he also seized the opportunity, so he got the job right away. Generally, mature sects use gold and silver from the mortal world to pay for this, but Wanjianmen only has a large amount of spirit stones left by Luo Hong, and no gold and silver reserves. Xiling is too lazy to prepare, and has always settled with Jiang Tishan with spirit stones, which led to today's scene. Okay, got it. After comforting Jiang Tishan, Luo Hong looked back at the three teenagers, aged 17 or 18 and said, do you have anything else to prepare? If not, we will set off immediately. These three key refining disciples are the top 3 in this competition, and they have excellent aptitude for cultivating immortals. If nothing unexpected happens, Wanjianmen will definitely have a place for them in the future. So, Luo Hong thought that, since someone had to cover them anyway, it would be better to train them at the same time, so he dispatched them from Wentian Cave Mansion. Uncle Luo, we have prepared everything we need when we came, and we can set off at any time. The cheerful woman who was the leader of the three bowed without hesitation. Then let's set off to Zilingzhou. Chapter 737 Relics. Zilingzhou is just like its name. It is located in the western border of Dajin. It has a long coastline, rich spiritual energy, and its cultivation resources are second only to Dongshenzhou. Buddhism is extremely prosperous in this state. The three major Buddhist sects of Dajin, Lian sect, Pure Land sect and Kyangyang temple, are all settled here. Among them, Lian sect is the strongest. It not only occupies half of Zilingzhou, but also has influence across several surrounding prefectures. Although the Pure Land sect and Kyangyang temple are comparable in strength, Kyangyang temple, which occupies the inland area, is better in terms of the wealth of the territory. After all, the resources on the sea are not only difficult to develop, but also face the threat of sea monsters. How can it be more comfortable to mine on land? Guangnan Prefecture is far away from Zilingzhou. If you use the speed of the foundation building cultivator, I'm afraid it will take a year to get there. Fortunately, the Dajin cultivation world has already found a solution, and established a large-scale teleportation array network connecting all prefectures. Because this network is too important, both the righteous and evil sides are not confident that the other side will be in charge, but they don't want to give up its convenience, so it has always been controlled by the royal family of Dajin. These large teleportation arrays across states and prefectures cost a lot of spirit stones to start each time, but since they can teleport nearly 100 people at a time, the spirit stones allocated to each cultivator are not too many. At least the foundation building cultivators can barely afford it. The disadvantage is that it is not suitable for cultivators who are in a hurry to travel. After all, it is not easy to gather so many cultivators who are going to the same state and willing to spend spirit stones. When Luo Hong and his party arrived at the nearest teleportation center, the cultivators going to Zilingzhou happened to have gathered almost. However, this is not because they are lucky, but because there are originally a lot of cultivators going to Zilingzhou. After all, compared to the inland areas that have long been divided up, overseas resources are ownerless, and many independent cultivators and disciples of small and medium-sized sects like to go out to sea to find opportunities. Even though Jiang Tizu was extremely anxious, he did not urge the deacon monk to open the formation. After arriving at the transmission center, after paying for everyone's travel expenses, he did not have the spirit stones to pay the extra fee for filling the position. Fortunately, only half a day later, the last few vacancies were filled. With a flash of white spiritual light, everyone appeared directly in the hinterland of Zilingzhou. At this time, going further west, you can reach the sphere of influence of the Pure Land sect, while Jiang Tishan's hometown town is in the east, located at the junction of the Pure Land sect and the Lian sect. It will take several years to hitchhike to Xianergy Palace. Luo Hong has plenty of time to play with the bold donkey of the Pure Land sect. At the moment, he was not in a hurry at all. He sacrificed a large spirit boat and got into the cabin. Ming was very curious about the customs of Zilingzhou, so he took the initiative to take over the job of driving the spirit boat and stayed on the deck all day. Therefore, in the eyes of the three disciples, Ming was much more friendly than Luo Hong. They dared not approach Luo Hong's cabin, but always came to Ming, calling him Uncle Master non-stop. Although Ming's puppet body was creepy, Luo Hong cast an illusion on her, and cultivators below the level of transformation could not see through her true body. At this time, Luo Hong closed his eyes and meditated in the cabin, observing the root of his mana flow. It was obviously not the infinite sea suppression art. After an unknown number of hours, Luo Hong suddenly stopped the practice, frowned and opened his eyes and said, "This 10,000 world swallowing Yuan Gong is really useless. Without the blessing of Kunpeng's true blood, the efficiency can be so slow that it makes people despair. The 10,000 world swallowing Yuan Gong is a practice that Luo Hong obtained from Kunpeng's feathers. It was originally supposed to be a reward given by Yaoshan Kunpeng after he completed the task, but he withdrew it in advance. Presumably, even Yaoshan Kunpeng did not expect that a Yuanian cultivator in the human world could comprehend the silver tassel text. When Luo Hong first obtained this technique, she was very happy because this technique has the amazing ability to devour the spiritual energy of the same origin and condense the laws. In other words, the magical power of the Wanji swallowing Yuan Gong is quite similar to the refining process of Tongshan Ling Bao. The latter uses spiritual materials with similar properties to accumulate laws and make them manifest, while the former is more mysterious. In theory, one can completely master a law after practicing to the extreme. Note that it is not a trace or a part of the law, but a complete one. The existence of this realm can even fight with the true immortal. However, this technique evolved from the innate magical power of Yaoshan Kunpeng and is not friendly to other creatures. Luo Hong tried to practice it in the past few years and found that it would not have any effect without thousands of years. On the contrary, Xiaojin was quite adaptable to this technique. Not only did she learn it easily, but after it was put into practice, the matter of refining the North Pole Yuan Gong, which had been making no progress, also went smoothly. Strands of North Pole Yuan Gong merged into the crystal phoenix crown on her head, causing it to gradually reveal a faint silver glow. In addition, it is worth mentioning that Xiaojin, who had refined some of the North Pole Yuan Guang, suddenly became interested in the relic left by Bizin. Luo Hong tried to feed her the relic, and found that her speed of refining the North Pole Yuan Guang increased several times. At first, Luo Hong thought he had found a way out, so he asked Xiaojin to spit out the relic again, despite her resentful eyes. However, when he used the relic to operate the Wanji swallowing Yuan Gong, it did not have the magical effect on Xiaojin at all. Obviously, the relic cannot directly improve the efficiency of the Wanji swallowing Yuan Gong, but indirectly works on Xiaojin. The most likely reason is that the relic stimulated the blood of Zhu Kunpeng, that Xiaojin returned to his ancestral home. Although the principle has not been understood yet, it does not prevent Luo Hong from collecting some relic on this trip. Although the Buddhist cultivator who can refine the relic must have at least the cultivation of the early stage of the nascent soul, this treasure is not a pure aggregation of spirit particles, but a fusion product of the Buddhist cultivator's own bones and blood and the Buddhist magic power. If it is properly preserved, it can be preserved for a long time. Therefore, the number of relics in existence should be considerable. Of course, Luo Hong did not get no benefit from the Wanji swallowing Yuan Gong. At least after being tempered by it, his magic power has reached a high level in purity. Otherwise, he would not have practiced while on the road. Uncle Luo, we are almost there. Uncle Hong asks you to go over and discuss what we should do next. The voice of Qishanshan, the first chief disciple of Wang Jianmen, came from outside the door. It turned out that several days had passed unknowingly. Got it. You go first. Luo will be there soon. After responding lightly, Luo Hong collected the talisman on the wall and pushed the door out. When he came to the deck of the spirit boat, Luo Hong saw Jiang Tishan lying on the side of the boat overlooking the town below. So he also looked over and saw that the farmland around the town was quite bleak. It was clearly the autumn harvest season, but there were no rice waves rolling. P.S. There is another chapter later. Chapter 738, Demonic Disaster, Man-Made Disaster. Shopkeeper Jiang, I have never asked you how you knew that there was a monster in your hometown. Food is the most important thing for people. Luo Hong had seen documentaries about farmers planting rice under bombings, and the residents of the town below had obviously completely abandoned the outer fields. This monster disaster must have been very serious. Report to the immortal. I asked the caravan to bring a letter home a few years ago. As a result, the reply letter I received a month ago said that there were monsters around the town, and even the monks in a nearby temple were eaten up overnight. And I also wrote about my recent situation in the letter home, so I asked for help from the villain. Jiang Tishan looked at the familiar town below with great heartache. He chose to leave home in his early 20s and followed the caravan led by immortal cultivators to explore Dajin. He went to Guangnan Prefecture and was lucky enough to meet Lu Zhu, so he was fortunate to get rich. This time, he also wanted to return home with wealth and satisfy his vanity, but when he saw that his hometown town was even more depressed than when he left, he couldn't help feeling sad. After hearing this, Luo Hong did not ask more about the situation of the monster. After all, the Jiang family was just a mortal family, and what they knew must be rumors, which had little reference value. After all, if a mortal really encountered a monster, how could he survive? Anyway, let's go to the Jiang family to see the situation first. Shopkeeper Jiang, do you still remember where your home is? Please lead the way for us. Luo Hong said in a cold but polite tone. It seemed that he had never been treated like this by a foundation building cultivator. Jiang Tishan was stunned for a moment, and then after thinking hard for a while, he pointed a direction to Yingming who was controlling the spirit boat. Sister Shanshan, what level of monster do you think it is? Can we deal with it? The thin young man standing next to Qishanshan asked with excitement on his face and a little fear in his eyes. Hey, junior brother Hajin, are you scared? It's okay, I will protect you with Lingai sword. The young man with a sword on his back standing on the other side laughed evilly, patted the scabbard on his back, and joked to Hajin. Kinley, don't talk nonsense, how can I be afraid of a mere monster? Besides, your Lingai sword is only stronger than mine when you are in the key refining stage. When we both build our foundation, you won't have any advantage. Then, I will definitely challenge you again and take back my identity as senior brother. The disciples of Wang Jianmen all entered the sect at the same time, so the relationship between them is not clear, so they privately divided by strength. Hao Jin was the third in the competition, so he became the junior brother of the second Qinli. It was because of this entanglement that the two often quarreled, but anyone with a discerning eye could see that their friendship was actually good, but they just refused to admit defeat. At this time, without waiting for Kinley to retort, Kishanshan said solemnly, "You two stop making trouble. This time, we should not take the elimination of the demon lightly." Shopkeeper Jiang just said that the demon ate all the monks in the temple. Zilingzhou is the territory of the Buddhist sect, and those monks may also be immortals. The demon beast can eat them all overnight, and its strength must be at least level 2. Level 2 demon beasts are equivalent to cultivators in the early stage of foundation building. As cultivators in the key refining period, the three of them must be careful to deal with them, even if they have some means of fighting against enemies at a higher level. After being taught a lesson by Kishanshan, Haojin and the other two not only did not get angry and retort, but they shrank their necks at the same time, glared at each other, and then quieted down. Of course, we don't have to be afraid of the demon beast. With Master Ying and Master Luo in charge, it will be a close call at most. Then, Kishanshan suddenly smiled and comforted the two of them. "Haha, you'd better not count on me. Brother Luo said that I can't take action unless it's absolutely necessary. And when that time comes, although your lives are safe, you will definitely be miserable." Yingming has been familiar with the three people these days, and he threatened them without any puppet frame of the god level transformation level. As he spoke, the spirit boat had stopped above a residential area, and there were few people on the grey street. The movement of the spirit boat made many mortals in the mansion walk out of the door, pointing at the sky boldly or fearfully. "Immortal, that's my father over there." Jiang Tishan carefully identified him and suddenly pointed at a white-haired old man with an excited face. "Well, I'll take you down." As soon as the voice fell, Luo Hong's palm was placed on Jiang Tishan's shoulder, and with a gust of cold wind, the two landed in front of Jiang's father. The spirit boat turned into a stream of light and drilled into Luo Hong's treasure bag, and Kishanshan and others followed. "Father, I'm Tishan. I've brought the immortals from the Wanjian sect. They have profound magic skills and will definitely be able to get rid of the evil spirits." "Father, why are you the only one at home? Where are my elder brother and his family?" Jiang Tishan looked behind his father and saw that no one came out to greet him. He couldn't help but ask in confusion. After all, it was written in the letter that his father lived with his elder brother's family. Jiang's father was already 60 years old. After recognizing Jiang Tishan, he excitedly reached out to touch his face, but when he heard that Luo Hong and others were immortals who came to get rid of the evil spirits, he immediately pushed away Jiang Tishan who was supporting him and knelt down to Luo Hong and said, "Immortal, help me." "Immortal? What? Your family was abducted by the monster?" Luo Hong released his spiritual sense to sense it, but did not find any evil spirit. "No. It was the government. The government captured my granddaughter. It turned out that the monster sent a message to the government in the town 3 days ago, asking for 50 pairs of boys and girls. After discussing, the officials decided to draw lots to select people, and the Jiang family was chosen. Jiang Tishan's elder brother and elder sister-in-law couldn't bear to part with their children, so they teamed up with a group of townspeople who were also chosen to kill the monster. That's why the old father was left alone at home. Ask for a boy and a girl." Kishanshan was shocked when she heard this. "Sister Shanshan, to have such intelligence, this monster must have formed a demon pill." Kinley didn't care whether he would be laughed at by Haojin, and said nervously, "Generally speaking, the monster that takes the initiative to ask for this intelligence is at least a level 5 or 6 existence, which is definitely not something that the 3 key refining cultivators can deal with. Similarly, it is not an existence that 2 foundation establishment cultivators can contend with. You don't have to worry, some gifted monsters will also have this kind of intelligence at level 3 or 4. Or, this is simply controlled by evil cultivators behind the scenes." Seeing that the 3 of them wanted to retreat at the first time, Luo Hong nodded with satisfaction in his heart. After all, a fool can't grow up. Uncle Master Qi is right. Although I have never seen a giant level monster, according to the records in the classics, if such a powerful monster were to let loose and feed on mortals, it would take more than 100 children to feed them. Kishanshan quickly calmed down, and after some analysis, She also thought that it was most likely an evil cultivator who was causing trouble. Chapter 739, Wolf Factory. Facing Giantician's expectant eyes, Luo Hong's face sank slightly and said, "Since we have encountered it, we, as cultivators, naturally cannot stay out of it. Junior brother Key, you immediately take your two junior brothers to the place where the boys and girls are imprisoned, and then ambush on the spot. When the monster appears, you can take action to eliminate it according to the situation." "Yes, Uncle Luo." The three of them were in awe of Luo Hong, who was taciturn and often had a cold face. After hearing his order, they immediately saluted and responded. "Junior sister Yingming, you go and watch them, just in case." After nodding slightly, Luo Hong turned his head and looked at Yingming on the side. "Does this count as one time?" "Point no. Humph, stingy. But forget it. It won't take much effort anyway. This kind of task that doesn't even use 1/10 of her strength will not give the human world a chance to extract her vitality, so Yingming doesn't mind helping a little. After all, she didn't want to see the three little guys get into trouble, otherwise she would have to go back to the boring state when she was alone with Luo Hong. Immortal, aren't you going with us?" Giantician looked at Luo Hong with flashing eyes and said very worriedly. In his opinion, Luo Hong was the most expert among the crowd, and the other immortal cultivators were also respectful to him. He must be the one with the highest cultivation among the crowd. But he didn't mean to take action at the moment, which made Giantician confused and anxious. When it's time to take action, Luo will take action. Shopkeeper Jiang, take Luo for a walk in the town before the monster arrives. After saying that, Luo Hong didn't care whether the other party agreed or not, and walked east along the street. This. Looking up at the four people who had already flown on the sword, Giantician hesitated for a moment, then suddenly slapped his thigh, told his father to go back to the house, and quickly followed Luo Hong. "Master, there is really nothing to see in this town. Everyone is very poor, and there is no spiritual mine nearby." Giantician was very puzzled by Luo Hong's behavior, and he bravely persuaded him. "The monsters are making trouble, but the residents of your town are very calm. They all stay at home, worship Buddha and chant scriptures. Can this drive away the monsters?" Luo Hong ignored Giantician's persuasion and asked on his own. Ordinary civil engineering naturally could not stop Luo Hong's spiritual sense. He did not need to work hard to find that most of the mortals in the town were chanting scriptures and worshipping Buddha in front of the shrine. Even Giantician's mother did not show up just now because of this. If it were Cheyenne, this town would have been empty long ago, and every mortal citizen would have to flee for their lives. How could they stay at home and wait for death? "Master, it really worked in the past. Ever since I can remember, this has been very effective. I remember one time my older brother was sick, his body was hot and cold, and he was not conscious. My mother knelt in front of the Buddha shrine for a night, and the next morning a monk came to cure my older brother's illness. I was young at the time and didn't understand much, but now I think that monk is actually a cultivator." Giantician showed a look of reminiscence and nodded as he spoke. "So that's how it is. Shopkeeper Jiang is now considered half a cultivator of the immortal world. I guess he has also realized the doorway, right?" Luo Hong seemed to have expected it after hearing this, but just said indifferently, "Master Luo, you are too kind. I'm just immortal. How dare I call myself half a cultivator of the immortal world? However, I have realized some things. The temple outside the town is probably a place for cultivation, and those monks who came to the door should be from it." Giantician hurriedly said, not daring to say anything. "So, the Buddhist Sinzlings are more considerate of mortals than the monks like us. Why did Manager Jiang leave his hometown and go to Guangnan Prefecture?" Luo Hong continued to walk without looking away. There was a noisy sound in front of him. Giantician was stunned by Luo Hong's question. He really hadn't thought about this question carefully. He wanted to make an excuse that it was a momentary impulse, but his decades of experience in surviving outside told him that this was not the real answer. While they were thinking, they had walked to a crossroads. They saw a group of people gathered not far away on the left, forming a circle and making a lot of noise. "It's been 3 days, right? More than that. It will be the 5th day after tonight. I didn't expect. That shopkeeper's eye looks honest, but his heart is so dirty that even the Buddha refused to show up to save his daughter. It's already evening. When will it be announced? They are so slow to do good deeds. No wonder the Buddha doesn't like the Zhao family. Listening to the discussions in the crowd, Jiang Tishan felt as if he was hit hard. His body suddenly shook twice, and a layer of white sweat suddenly appeared on his back. Yes, he remembered. He didn't go to Zilingzhou where the caravan left on impulse, but because he was inexplicably afraid in his heart, he took the initiative to escape. He wanted to escape from this cage where he prayed to Buddha when he was hungry, prayed to Buddha when he was sick, and thought of praying to Buddha for everything. Oh, what a wish factory. It's ruining people. Luo Hong shook his head, flicked his fingers and shot out a blue stream of light, and then heard a cry of joy from the house. Let's go. It's time to get down to business. After saying that, Luo Hong summoned a small spiritual boat, took Jiang Tishan, and fled out of the town. In fact, he had felt that something was wrong with the residents of the town as soon as he arrived. After sweeping the town with his spiritual sense, he found that most of the residents were lifeless. It was not that they were physically weak, but that they were mentally decadent. One by one, they all looked numb. It was because of this abnormality that Luo Hong decided to stay and find out, lest he lose face, even though the monster was eliminated. But now it seems that this is not the work of monsters or evil cultivators, but the characteristics of Zilingzhou. It is not difficult to understand after thinking about it. Buddhist monks are not more relaxed when practicing than the monks of the righteous and evil ways, so they are so willing to spend time on mortals, obviously for some purpose. Looking at the Buddhist practice system, the most distinctive feature is its use of willpower. Another spiritual object with very Buddhist characteristics, the relic, is actually mainly used to absorb and store the power of will, so that the Yuanying Buddhist cultivator can better use this power. It can be said that the power of will is one of the cores of the Buddhist cultivation system. And the power of will is not like the power of mana, which can be regenerated, but it is used a little less. As a Buddhist sect that has stood for tens of thousands of years, it is natural for the Lian sect to have the means to collect the power of will on a large scale. Although Luo Hong is a little uncomfortable, he can't say anything. After all, people are willing to do good things like curing diseases and providing porridge. What reason does he have to stop them? Besides, the system of the Lian sect does not block all the roads. As long as mortals have enough enterprising spirit, they will naturally wake up and jump out of the framework. Luo Hong feels unhappy because he comes from an era that advocates everyone to be like a dragon, and most of the mortals under the rule of the Lian sect are mostly happy to do so. If he dissuades them, people will most likely scold him for meddling in other people's business. On the other hand, Luo Hong also got an important piece of information from it. The power of will is like evil spirit. Generally, there is a perpetrator for every grievance and a debt for every debt. It is not easy for an individual to collect it. Low-level Buddhist practitioners have little demand for willpower, and they can still use inefficient methods such as door-to-door service to collect it, but higher-level Buddhist practitioners obviously cannot do that. Therefore, the role of the relic in absorbing onerous willpower is highlighted. It is also for this reason that the Buddhist sect has to invent a Buddha. After all, once the willpower falls on a living being, the law does not allow it to be easily transferred. If this is reversed, a considerable part of the relic accumulated by the Pure Land sect for tens of thousands of years should be scattered in the temples around the major mortal towns within its sphere of influence. Silently, Luo Hong knew what to do next. On the other side, on a barren mountain outside the town, the government runners were escorting 50 pairs of boys and girls to the Maple Leaf Temple, which was originally very popular. The parents of these young children fell 100 feet away. There were nearly 200 men and women, far outnumbering the Yamen runners, but none of them dared to step forward to take back their children. Chapter 740 Direct Atmosphere. Looking at the many crying children in front of her and their parents carrying poles and kitchen knives behind them, Qi Shanshan frowned, feeling very complicated. Sister Shanshan, why do these mortals not fear the monsters and insist on following us, but dare not knock down the Yamen runners and take their children back? Hao Jin couldn't understand the situation in front of him. After all, if it were him, he would have chopped them down with a sword. Seeing that Qishanshan did not respond, Qin Li turned to look at Ying Ming beside him and asked in confusion, "Uncle Ying, do you know? Although I don't know, I guess that if they move those Yamen runners, something more terrible than death will happen to them." Ying Ming, as a spiritual puppet, has a very pure mind and does not understand the thoughts of the human race. After guessing, she suddenly smiled and continued, "It seems that they are going to lock these children in that abandoned temple. The three of you go in and ambush first. I won't follow you. Be careful." As soon as the voice fell, Ying Ming turned into a pink light and sank directly into the trunk of a big tree, disappearing without a trace. "Ah, it's the wood release technique. Is Uncle Ying so powerful?" Haojin stared and said in shock, "Even if a foundation building cultivator can master the simplest earth escape technique, it is enough to dominate his peers. The existence of the wood release technique is simply unimaginable." The three of them were surprised and calmed down. After all, they had the wood release technique as a foundation. Even if they encountered the worst situation, they would probably be able to escape. "Okay, this is Uncle Ying trying to comfort us. We can't delay any longer. Let's go." Qishanshan gave an order, and the three of them jumped into the abandoned temple at the same time. After a moment, their breath was covered by the talisman. In the sky, Jiang Tishan was holding the edge of the spirit boat, stretching his head and looking at Wang. Then, I don't know if he lost his patience or saw his elder brother, he suddenly said to Luo Hong with some dissatisfaction, "Master Luo, don't we go down? Luo knows what to do. I will make sure your family is fine. I will just watch from here." Haha, is it so interesting to be in the atmosphere? I don't know what Luo Hong thought of. He chuckled inexplicably and said something that Jiang Tishan couldn't understand at all. The sun set and the moon rose, and in a blink of an eye it was midnight. In the abandoned temple, the Yamen runners had already left, and 50 pairs of boys and girls were left in the temple. More than 200 mortals were trembling outside the wall in the cold wind. Just when everyone suspected that the monster would not come tonight, a fierce monster wind blew up and blew out all the torches prepared by everyone. Only a bonfire in front of the temple gate kept the light. In the midst of chaos, a muffled dong sound came, and everyone felt the ground shaking, and they all looked towards the bonfire. The swaying firelight reflected a terrifying monster with a shoulder height of 10 feet. The huge head like a green lion raised slightly, and then opened its bloody mouth and roared wildly. The huge sound wave directly blew away the townspeople within a range of 10 feet. The monster's fierce power frightened many people so much that they cried and forgot what they came for. Fortunately, the monster seemed to have no interest in the townspeople outside the temple. It didn't even look at the few townspeople who had mustered up their courage and came with carrying poles. It kicked its forelegs and jumped into the abandoned temple. "Ah, no." The monster went in to eat children. "Don't just stand there, fight this beast." After shouting, dozens of townspeople finally rushed into the abandoned temple hall. With the candlelight in the hall, they immediately saw the whole appearance of the monster. It had a green lion head, but its body was like a long snake, covered with thick scales, with webbed claws on its huge claws, and a green demon fire burning on its tail. The children in the hall were already scared to death when they saw such a terrifying monster rushing in. They huddled together and screamed. At this critical moment, 3 flying swords of different colors suddenly shot out from 3 directions, attacking the lion-headed monster's eyebrows, waist and back. At the same time, the previously arranged 3-talent sword formation was activated, and 3 beams of light shot up from 3 different directions, connecting to form a light curtain, trapping the lion-headed monster in it. The lion-headed monster was not afraid of the sudden attack, and blew a gust of wind at the oncoming flying sword, and a flick of its tail even stirred up a green wave of fire. As for the flying sword attacking its waist, it ignored it. In an instant, the flying sword in front was blown by the strong wind and could not move forward, and the flying sword behind did not dare to touch the green wave of fire. The flying sword in the middle slashed on the waist of the lion-headed monster without any hindrance, but did not cut through the opponent's thick scales. It's a level 3 sea monster lion dragon beast. Use the formation to attack together. Qishanshan tested the strength of the lion-headed monster with one move. Although the opponent was a level 3 monster beast with a little dragon blood, the three of them were also the leaders of the same generation, and they also had a formation to help them, so they were not without the ability to fight. The 81 sword techniques of the Wanjian sect all originated from the same ancient sect, and their combined power is much stronger than normal. Except for the first 10 rounds, when the three of them were in danger, the attack power of the lion dragon beast decreased as time went by. Once it could not be suppressed by force, the shortcomings of the lion dragon beast's intelligence were revealed, and the balance of victory and defeat began to gradually tilt towards Qishanshan and the other two. Don't let your guard down, be careful of this beast's backlash before death. Qishanshan reminded with a pale face, while driving the flying sword. The three of them have been fighting until now, and there is not much mana left, so there is no room for any mistakes. Just as the three of them gritted their teeth and held on, a blood-colored stream of light suddenly flew in from outside the temple door and immediately landed on the lion dragon beast. When the spiritual light dissipated, a blood-colored talisman was seen, attached to the back of the lion dragon beast's head. As soon as Kinley saw the talisman clearly, he shouted loudly in horror, "It's a bloodthirsty talisman. Kill this monster quickly." Once the bloodthirsty talisman is activated, the lion dragon beast will immediately go crazy, and its strength will increase by 30% to 40%. It is definitely not something that they can resist with their exhausted strength. However, the appearance of the talisman proves that the lion dragon beast is not a wild monster beast, but a spiritual beast controlled by the monks. It will naturally guard against the attack of the three people. So even though the three people reacted very quickly, they could only watch the bloodlight covering the whole body of the lion dragon beast. What should we do, sister? Delay for 10 breaths. I have a backhand to kill it. Haojin and Kinley looked at each other, and then nodded in agreement. One of them took out 3 talismans with a painful face, and threw them on the flying sword, and the other spit out a fire snake from his mouth, and asked it to wrap around the flying sword with a pale face. At this moment, outside the abandoned temple, on the barren mountain, Ming was confronting a big-eared monk with a relaxed look. "Fellow Daoist, why don't you go and help your nephew?" Once stimulated by the bloodthirsty talisman, the dragon blood of the lion dragon beast will greatly increase its magical power. It is definitely not something that 3 juniors in the key refining stage can contend with. The big-eared male cultivator frowned and looked at Ming Dao with some doubt. Originally, when he saw that there were immortal cultivators involved, he couldn't help but think of his senior brother's previous warning, and was ready to give up on this matter. But at this time, the big-eared male cultivator suddenly found that a female cultivator in the middle stage of foundation building had come to 10 feet in front of him without knowing when. Although this woman's cultivation was not high, her aura was very strange. When the big-eared male cultivator didn't look at her, his spiritual sense could not sense her existence at all, but when he looked at her, he could sense the aura of mana equivalent to the middle stage of foundation building. It was really quite weird. Chapter 741 Misunderstanding. The other party's origin was unknown, and his aura was strange. The big-eared male cultivator immediately wanted to retreat, so he suddenly sacrificed a bloodthirsty talisman, hoping that the lion dragon beast would help him play Weni Weni to save Zhao, so that he could take the opportunity to leave. However, let alone move his feet, Ming didn't even glance at the abandoned temple, and looked like he was going to fight to the death with the big-eared male cultivator. Seeing this, the big-eared male cultivator was even more panicked, so he pretended to be calm, and reminded Ming. "How do you know that I can't rescue you here?" Ming said lightly. With her magical powers, even if she confronted the big-eared male cultivator here, she could instantly kill the lion dragon beast at a critical moment, so she naturally had no waves in her heart at the moment. "Seeing that the Taoist fellow is determined to fight with Zan today, then I ask for your advice." The big-eared male cultivator's temple bulged, and finally couldn't bear the pressure. After shouting, he was ready to take action. But in fact, he could have escaped unscathed. After all, Ming stopped him, just because she didn't want him to ruin the trial of Qishanshan and the other two. As long as he didn't take the initiative, she would naturally not bother to take his life. Unfortunately, the big-eared male cultivator was guilty and arbitrarily determined that Ming would not let him go easily, thus he walked on a dead end. The big-eared male cultivator opened and closed his arms, pinched a spell with his hands, and suddenly 8 crystal blue streams flew out of his storage bag and circled in front of him. Go. With a loud shout, the big-eared male cultivator pointed the spells of his hands at Ming, and immediately the 8 crystal blue streams swooshed towards Ming. Faced with such a fierce attack, Ming's expression did not change at all. He just raised his arms and waved twice, and knocked all the 8 crystal blue streams away. After these crystal blue streams fell to the ground, the spiritual light quickly dissipated, revealing a magic weapon shaped like a small sword. What a powerful magic weapon. It can block Zhang's coldfish sword so easily. I will fight you. As long as the big-eared male cultivator looked at Ming, he would fall into the illusion left by Luo Hong. So in his opinion, the scene just now was not that Ming swatted his flying sword away with her bare hands, like chasing away a mosquito, but that she used an extremely powerful protective magic weapon to easily block the attack. The 5 senses of the big-eared male cultivator were all distorted by the illusion. No matter what Ming did, he would automatically use the methods of the foundation building cultivator to deceive himself. Seeing that Ming's magic weapon was powerful, the big-eared male cultivator decided to fight hard. With bloodshot eyes, he took out a pill from the storage bag and swallowed it, as if he was going to die. The next moment, a violent spiritual energy exploded from his body, and his aura suddenly climbed from the late stage of foundation building to the level close to that of a giant and cultivator. Ha ha ha. Didn't expect that our sect's life-changing pill can make me rival a giant and cultivator in a short period of time. Give me your life. The so-called life-changing pill is nothing more than a life-threatening pill that burns the lifespan of a cultivator and greatly improves his cultivation in a short period of time. It is because taking this pill will consume at least 30 or 40 years of lifespan, and even if you kill a strong enemy, you will not live long, so it is called life-changing. However, the big-eared male cultivator's aggressive declaration did not arouse Ming's interest at all. She even turned her head to look at the abandoned temple, raised her eyebrows and said, "Not bad, these 3 little guys actually succeeded." It turned out that at this moment, the winner in the abandoned temple hall had been decided. Qishanshan risked her soul being injured and added all the sword intent she had accumulated for 5 years to the flying sword. In the end, she cut off the head of the lion dragon beast with one sword. After saying that, Ming turned around and looked at the big-eared male cultivator who was still preparing to attack with a Dan, and whispered, "I won't play with you anymore." Then, she pinched her orchid fingers, and a golden beam-like spiritual flame appeared. She flicked it lightly, and it landed on the chest of the big-eared male cultivator. With a puff, the originally aggressive big-eared male cultivator was touched by the golden flame, and disappeared without even a scream. At this time, Ming took a step forward and immediately appeared in the abandoned temple hall, and saw Qishanshan and the other 2 supporting each other, and discussing how to divide the body of the lion dragon beast. Seeing Ming suddenly appear, the 3 people were all happy, vying to show off their achievements. At the same time, the townspeople outside the hall saw that the monster's head had fallen off and was lying on the ground motionless, and they immediately rushed into the hall in tears to look for their children. After a long quarrel, the hall was soon full of people kneeling on the ground, and 300 people were frantically thanking Qishanshan and the others for saving their lives. Qishanshan and the other 2 had been sent to the Wanjian sect to practice since they were young and had never seen such a scene before. They were immediately filled with vanity and smiled foolishly, forgetting the pain on their bodies. In terms of gains, they could only be considered to have broken even this time, or at most a small profit. Although the corpse of the 3rd level lion dragon beast was worth a lot of spirit stones, the trump card they used, plus the time wasted on healing, made this trial basically a wasted trip. However, they were so happy now that they couldn't think of these things. "Don't be too happy too soon, the 3 of you. Someone is coming," Ming said with interest. As soon as the voice fell, before the 3 of them could react, the sound of Buddhist chanting came from outside the hall. Then, 2 Buddhist cultivators wearing cassocks slowly flew in, flying in the air. At least Buddhist cultivators in the giant stage. The 3 of them were startled at the same time. After looking at each other, they decisively gave up the corpse of the lion dragon beast and quietly retreated to the side of Ming. "Good. The four donors have done many evil things and confused sentient beings. Today, we have caught them. Why don't you surrender quickly? One of the tall and thin Buddhist cultivators said that the four people were extremely evil and acted as if he had finally found something after a long investigation. Although the other Buddhist cultivator did not speak, his eyes were quite sharp and murderous, as if he would immediately attack and kill the four people if they disobeyed. Kishanshan thought about the purpose of these two people, but she never expected that the other party would come up to ask for punishment. Good guy, these two are probably blind. Although she was very dissatisfied in her heart, the situation was stronger than the people. The two Buddhist cultivators were at least in the giant stage, and her side was absolutely unable to compete. Therefore, Kishanshan could only suppress her dissatisfaction and said, "The two seniors have misunderstood. We are the monks who received the commission from Lingxi and came to exorcise the demons. These mortals were all saved by us. Such a righteous act, in the eyes of the seniors, is it not worthy of praise? Humph. How dare you? Even now, you are still talking nonsense here. You have poisoned more than 100 towns, and you still think that your methods can be concealed from the world?" The tall and thin Buddhist cultivator glared, as if he could not suppress the anger in his heart, and suddenly released his spiritual pressure. Kishanshan and the other two were already injured, and their magic power was almost exhausted. How could they resist the spiritual pressure of the high-level Buddhist cultivator at the moment? Fortunately, at the critical moment, Ming suddenly pointed his sword to the top of his head and saw a pink light column shot out, flew out a foot and exploded, turning into a layer of light curtain, covering the four people. Huh. What a powerful magic weapon. It seems that you are the thief leader. The tall and thin Buddhist cultivator was obviously also fooled by Luo Hong's magic. After a light exclamation, he looked at Ming with a grim look. As soon as the voice fell, the Buddhist cultivator next to him finally couldn't bear it anymore. He raised his hand and offered a demon subduing pestle and was about to kill. Wait, two masters. These three immortals did save our children. They didn't lie. Seeing that the two sides were about to fight, someone among the kneeling mortals shouted loudly. As soon as these words came out, it was like dry wood meeting a flame. Everyone echoed and began to speak for Kishanshan and the other two. Although they were facing two high-level Buddhist cultivators, the hundreds of mortals in the hall dared to dissuade them. After all, they had more or less seen the high monks who came to provide door-to-door services, and they didn't know the realm divisions in the world of immortal cultivation, so they thought they were the same. The Buddhist cultivator holding the pestle, silence. A loud shout fell into everyone's heart. The mortals who were talking suddenly found that they couldn't make a sound, and those who didn't speak found that they couldn't open their mouths. In an instant, the hall became so quiet that you could smell a pin drop. But don't be deceived by the villains. What happened today is just a show. Whether it's the monsters eating people or they saving you, it's all a vicious calculation, just to make you grateful to them. In this way, you will fall into their evil ways, and your end will be worse than death. The tall and thin Buddhist monk said it with a serious face, which immediately made the mortals hesitate. After all, this is Lingzhou, and Buddhism is very prestigious. Senior, there must be a misunderstanding. We don't have such a vicious intention. Hao Jin knew that he and others had encountered trouble when he heard it, and explained in a panic. Yes, we are monks from the Wanjian sect of Guangnan Prefecture. We just came to Zilingzhou the day before yesterday. The two seniors must be looking for someone else. King Li also hurriedly echoed. Kishanshan pondered at this time, but she thought of more. She originally thought it was strange that a level 3 demon beast rushed into the crowd and didn't kill a mortal. If it was an accident, the probability was too small. Now, after listening to the tall and thin monk's accusation, she immediately understood that the evil cultivator who sacrificed the bloodthirsty talisman had this idea, but he didn't expect them to exist. Now, although they killed the other party's spirit beast, they also achieved the same goal as the other party. It's no wonder that these two Buddhist elders mistook them. Therefore, if they want to explain it clearly, they can only find the evil cultivator. Uncle Hying, you have been protecting us in secret. I guess you have seen that evil cultivator? Kishanshan asked Ming, who was most likely to know the whereabouts of the evil cultivator. There was a cultivator with big ears. I saw that he was in the same group with the demon beast, so I stopped him. After all, this beast is enough for you to train. Ming said without any tension. Then where is he? Shanshan was overjoyed when she heard it and asked hurriedly. Beat him to death, leaving no trace behind. Ming raised his lips and said with a gentle smile. Ah. Then there will be no evidence. Shanshan's heart suddenly turned cold, and she felt that she and the others could not escape this disaster. Humph. Don't say anything more, just surrender, and your uncle will interrogate you, and will never wrongly accuse you. The tall and thin Buddhist monk saw that the four people seemed to have a hidden secret, and couldn't help but soften his tone. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 742. It was the Pure Land sect who did it. Surrendering and handing over one's life to others is something that a cultivator cannot accept. Even when facing a giant and cultivator, Shanshan wanted to struggle, so she looked at Ming unwillingly. Her big blinking eyes revealed only one meaning. Uncle Ming, use the wood release technique to take us away. Ming also felt a little difficult at this time. If she said to take people away, she would be a little angry and unwilling, but if she said to kill the two monks, she didn't want to either. After all, the whole thing was probably a misunderstanding. After thinking blankly for a moment, she decided to knock the two monks unconscious first, and then leave them to Luo Hong when he came. But at this moment, the tall and thin Buddhist cultivators suddenly received a telepathic message, and after hesitantly looking at the four people, they fled out of the hall without saying a word. This made the mortals and cultivators in the hall feel very puzzled, and they had no idea what they were doing. Haha, so that's how it is. The flood really washed away the Dragon King temple. Well, it's okay. Let's go back to the town first, and wait for your Uncle Qi to come back. Ming received the voice transmission a little later. He immediately understood the whole story, and said with a relaxed look. Although Shanshan and the other two were full of doubts, they had no time to ask more questions at this time, because of the sudden change. They just wanted to leave this place quickly. Then, after the three of them hastily divided the lion dragon beast, they sacrificed the flying magic weapon, and fled towards the town. On the other side, the tall and thin Buddhist cultivators who were also full of heart flew all the way to the northeast, after leaving the abandoned temple. About an incense stick later, the two came to a huge red lotus floating in the air. As soon as the light of escape dispersed, they saluted to a kind-looking middle-aged monk in the crowd and said, Uncle Yanjing, I'm summoned back, but what urgent matters do you have to tell me? When asking, the two of them couldn't help but glance at a young cultivator beside Yanjing, whose figure seemed to be in the mist, and whose spiritual sense was very vague. Their intuition told them that the reason they were summoned back at the critical moment was because of this person's appearance. And the facts once again proved that the spiritual perception of high-level cultivators was very accurate. You two nephews, don't be busy. The evil cultivators who made trouble here have been eliminated by the disciples of Master Luo. You can go down and rest first. Yanjing knew that they were concerned about this matter, so he explained it immediately. So what those juniors said was true. Fortunately, we didn't act out of anger and almost caused a disaster. Good thing. Hearing their nascent soul uncle say this, the two of them had no doubts and immediately broke out in a cold sweat, and couldn't help but secretly reflect on themselves. At this time, Luo Hong just smiled slightly, and didn't tell the two monks that they had been through the gates of hell. After dealing with this matter, Yanjing took Luo Hong into a small reception room with a happy face. As soon as he sat down, Yanjing said in disbelief, Master Luo, in less than 100 years, you have already broken through from the early stage of the nascent soul to the late stage of the nascent soul. You are truly gifted, and should be celebrated. Haha, Master Yanjing has also made great progress in his cultivation. In my opinion, you are already at the threshold of a breakthrough. Maybe when we meet again next time, the master will already be a Buddhist cultivator in the late stage of the nascent soul. Everyone was carrying the flowery sedan chair, and Luo Hong was also quite good at commercial flattery, so he just opened his mouth and said it. In addition, Luo Hong was not surprised that Yanjing could see through his true cultivation. After all, this monk had cultivated his telepathic ability and was especially good at detecting auras. Luo Hong was also visiting a friend, so naturally he did not deliberately hide it. Haha, I don't know how many years I will be stuck at this level. How dare I compare with Master Luo. Master Luo came to Zilingzhou this time, but you have to fulfill the promise made in the past and pay a visit to my Lian sect. Yanjing waved his hand and couldn't help asking Luo Hong's purpose. A terrifying existence in the late Yuanying period came to his own territory. Even if it was an old friend with whom he had a good relationship, Yanjing was a little worried. There is no need to pay a visit. Luo Mao came here to deal with important matters, but before I tell you, Luo Mao wants to ask the master something first. What kind of force did the evil cultivator who just made trouble rely on to dare to so rampantly harm mortals in the Buddhist land of Lian sect? The three major Buddhist sects can be said to be of the same blood and branches. It is said that they have a very friendly relationship with each other. Naturally, Luo Hong would not easily tell his purpose of making the Pure Land sect feel pain. However, the monk Yanjing has become much more stable in recent years and did not persuade him to become a monk right away. Well, since Master Luo is involved in this matter, I have nothing to hide. To be honest, before we could react, more than 100 towns had already been attacked by those evil cultivators, including large cities with a population of 1 million, almost covering the entire Lian sect. In addition, there was news from Kyangyang Temple that there were also evil cultivators there who did the same thing. Hearing this, Luo Hong knew that the matter must be serious. Such a large-scale operation must be supported by a huge force behind the scenes. So his face darkened, and he listened carefully to what was going on. I received the order from my master, and came to investigate. I found that the methods of those evil cultivators are extremely abominable. They always create demonic disasters or epidemics around mortal towns to cause chaos. Then they will attack the local Buddhist disciples, making their mortal towns lose the protection of cultivators and become isolated and helpless. At this time, they will do everything they can to detonate chaos in full view of the public, and then they will suddenly jump out to save the people from the water and fire. But they do this not out of kindness, but to use this to perform evil magic on a large scale. Those mortals who have been subjected to evil magic will all become muddle-headed, lose their spiritual wisdom, and are basically only a few steps away from being a walking corpse. Such an end is really worse than death. Yanjing couldn't bear to think of the miserable conditions in those mortal towns, and shook his head and sighed. The Lian sect and Kyangyang Temple have suffered, so isn't the remaining Pure Land sect very suspicious? Master, didn't you investigate it? Luo Hong raised a doubt that everyone thought of. Not only did the elder investigate, he also sent a senior brother to the Pure Land sect. Then we found that the Pure Land sect not only encountered the same situation, but it was much more serious than ours. It is said that they are also investigating this matter and suspect that those evil cultivators came from overseas. From the clues we found here, it is indeed the case. The monsters driven by those evil cultivators are all sea monsters. It is really possible that someone secretly established a large sect overseas, and in order to achieve some shameful purpose, they dared to go ashore and commit such a disaster. Afterwards, Luo Hong and Yanjing had a lot of discussions about the evil cultivators. They learned that the Lian sect had not caught those evil cultivators, but the restrictions on the other party were extremely powerful, and no useful information could be obtained from them. Moreover, after these evil cultivators were captured alive, it only took 7 days for the restrictions on their bodies to explode, and they died with only a pool of dirty blood. In addition, all the evil cultivators who were caught only had foundation building cultivation, and higher level evil cultivators seemed to only appear when destroying temples. All these things showed that the other party came prepared, and it would definitely not be an easy task to find out. Fortunately, after Yanjing and several nascent soul Buddhas were dispatched, the evil cultivators restrained themselves a lot. What happened in Jiangjia town was just a special case, and Luo Hong was unlucky to encounter it. Therefore, Yanjing's mentality at this time has been calmed down, and he is not in a hurry. Although many evidences point to the overseas evil cultivators as the culprit, Luo Hong has only one thought after hearing it. Damn, it must be the Pure Land sect who did it. Chapter 743 Buddha Moves. As the leader of the three major Buddhist sects, Lian sect must be extremely furious when someone plucked its tiger whiskers, so the disciples sent to investigate must not be ordinary people. In this way, Yang Jing's words are extremely credible. The fact that the mortal towns within the Pure Land sect's sphere of influence have also suffered heavy losses is probably true. However, it is precisely this point that makes Luo Hong believe that there is something wrong with the Pure Land sect. My goodness, their home has been robbed, and they still have the time to target a late-stage nascent soul cultivator far away in Guangnan Prefecture. This is either because they have a good idea in their mind, or they are simply the mastermind. No matter which one it is, the Pure Land sect must be involved in this matter. However, Luo Hong could not let Yanjing know about this inference. Whether the other party believed him or not was secondary. The main reason was that he did not want Wang Jianmen to be pushed to the front. Sitting on such a top-level cave paradise as Wentian Cave Mansion, once it is exposed, Wang Jianmen will definitely not be able to defend it with its current strength. The Wanjian patriarch can become famous, but Wang Jianmen has to survive. Thinking of this, Luo Hong suddenly spread out his right palm, and after a flash of light, the ancient treasure of the demon-subduing pestle he got from Taping Water Palace appeared in his palm. Master Luo, what are you doing? Yanjing seemed to have a guess, and looked at Luo Hong in confusion. Master, don't be so nervous. Luo came to Zilingzhou this time for two things to do. The first one, Master, you already know, is to take the disciples to experience some experience. To be honest, Luo founded the Wanjian sect because someone entrusted him. Since he promised at that time, he naturally had to do it. But Luo has other important things to do, and he will leave Dajan in a while, and I don't know when I can come back. It is really difficult for a newly established sect to withstand the wind and rain. Luo doesn't want to come back one day and only see a ruin. So the second thing is to ask the master to help the Wanjian sect after Luo leaves, and this treasure will be regarded as Luo's advance payment to the master. Luo Hong handed the demon-subduing pestle to Yanjing. Compared with ordinary people, the officials of Dajan knew more about the immortal cultivators, so when they saw the head of the lion dragon beast, they immediately and enthusiastically arranged Qishanshan and others in the Yingxin pavilion. Although Qishanshan and the other two were the best among their peers in cultivation, their minds were still those of young people, and they were still full of vigor. They didn't say it, but they were actually very dissatisfied with the officials in the town for succumbing to the evil cultivators and offering young boys and girls. On the way back to the town, they were still thinking about teaching these officials a lesson, but after they found out the truth, they immediately gave up the idea. It turned out that the officials in the town had tried hard, but the result was that the official and a group of elite officials became the food of the lion dragon beast. For the immortal cultivators and monsters, mortals are too powerless. The big-eared evil cultivator wanted to make the townspeople fall into despair and then come forward to be the savior, so naturally he had to deal with the hard bones first. No one dared to take the lead, so they could only let him bully them. On the surface, only the Yamen runners were doing the sacrificing of boys and girls, but in fact, it was tacitly approved by all the townspeople. To be precise, it was tacitly approved by the vast majority of townspeople who were not drawn. It is hard to say whether the way of survival under desperation is right or wrong, so the three of them stopped thinking about it and went to Yingxin Pavilion to heal their wounds. The next morning, the three of them came to the first floor for breakfast with bad looks, but saw Luo Hong, who had not been seen overnight, sitting in the hall with Master Ying. Master Luo, those two big monks let us go easily last night because of you, right? I thank you here. Qishanshan didn't understand it at first, but after a night of meditation, she couldn't help but guess. Thank you, Master Luo. Haojin and Kinli were also smart people, and they immediately followed suit. One of my missions in coming to Zilingzhou this time is to pass on the message of our ancestor. A Yuanying senior from Lian sect has some friendship with our ancestor. Luo met him last night, and the senior also happily signed an alliance with our sect. Therefore, you three don't need to thank me, just remember the kindness of our ancestor. Luo Hong brainwashed the future mainstay of Wanjian sect without changing his expression. The kindness of the ancestor must be remembered, and the kindness of the uncle master must not be forgotten. Qishanshan said more respectfully than before. After all, those who can be related to the Yuanying ancestor must not be ordinary foundation building cultivators. Okay, there's no need to say nice words. Zilingzhou is not peaceful now. After you refine this pill, go back to Wanjianmen immediately, and don't stay outside. In addition, you have performed well in this training. After building your foundation, you can go to the head of the sect. The ancestor has prepared some rewards for you. Hey, I'm a little jealous of such grace. I wonder if you are willing to die for our sect in the future? Luo Hong looked at the three people with a smile. This time, Qishanshan didn't need to take the lead. The three of them said in unison, "Thank you for your grace, ancestor. Disciples are willing to die for our sect. Haha, take it. Remember what you said today." After leaving a bottle of pills, Luo Hong and Yingming disappeared in the hall, and only their voices were still echoing in the ears of the three. In the sky, Luo Hong was flying side by side with Yingming. Judging from the direction, the two were obviously heading to the territory of the Pure Land sect. Dao Luo, don't you feel guilty for fooling them like this? Yingming looked at Luo Hong with a strange expression. Haha, what's the pain? What Luo gave them is enough to make them willing to work hard. Fellow Daoist Yingming, now is not like the ancient times. The resources for cultivating immortals are extremely scarce. If the benefits left by Luo were known to outsiders, it might cause a bloody storm. Therefore, Luo is not exploiting them, but giving them an opportunity. Luo Hong chuckled, and did not think that there was anything wrong with tricking others to work for him. Even if Qishanshan and the other two knew the whole story of today's incident, they would not have any dissatisfaction, because Luo Hong gave too much. According to the sword tactics of these three people, Luo Hong left 3 treasure boxes respectively. From the initial stage of foundation building, as long as their cultivation breaks through a level, they can get a reward, and this reward is definitely what they need most, or are most suitable for at that time. Just as Luo Hong rushed to the western part of Zilingzhou, Yanjing, who had a long talk with him all night, also quickly returned to the Lian sect's sect headquarters Lian Mountain Range through Lian sect's own transmission network, and asked to meet the Great Elder without stopping. Buddha has mercy on me, junior brother Yanjing, has the matter on the border been resolved? An old monk with white eyebrows came out to greet him, and asked about the evil cultivators' rebellion, as soon as they met. Great Elder, the evil cultivators are still under investigation. Junior brother came back this time for other important matters. He must see the living Buddha immediately. Yanjing's tone was quite excited. He wanted to bypass the Great Elder and immediately ring the thunder sound bell. Buddha has mercy on me, junior brother, you are obsessed. The peaceful words came out of the white eyebrow monk's mouth. After passing through Yanjing, his expression immediately relaxed, and his mood calmed down. But, the Great Elder taught you that this matter really cannot be rushed. Yanjing was stunned for a moment, then he breathed a sigh of relief, put his hands together and bowed. Buddha has mercy on me, junior brother is very perceptive. So, what exactly made junior brother so anxious to see the living Buddha? The white eyebrow monk nodded slightly. The Buddhist disciple from Cheyenne is here. Yanjing raised the corners of his mouth slightly, but his eyes were burning. Chapter 744, Long Lost Anger. Luo Hong was completely unaware of Yanjing's evil intentions. After 3 consecutive days of flying, he and Yingming had arrived outside a mortal city within the Pure Land sect's sphere of influence. According to the intelligence obtained earlier, if Buddhist disciples want to obtain a large amount of willpower, which is the key to their cultivation, they must rely on a large number of mortals. Therefore, any mortal town of a certain size must have temples built by Buddhist monks around it. It is easy to infer that there must be higher level Buddhist cultivators in those mortal cities. In this way, Luo Hong only needs to go to the mortal cities within the Pure Land sect's sphere of influence one by one to easily capture the Yuanying Buddhist cultivators and implement his revenge plan. With a sweep of his spiritual sense, Luo Hong discovered a magnificent temple, and it was right in the center of the city. This made him frown. What's the matter? Is there any problem? Do you need me to help? Ming waved his fist and said quite actively. No need, I just don't like it. It's nothing serious. Luo Hong shook his head and said with a slightly gloomy face. Compared to what I saw and heard in the Lion sect, the Pure Land sect's control over mortals is obviously more profound. Although the Lion sect has also established a system for collecting vows, all of their temples are outside the town. Although they cannot be compared with the righteous and evil ways that are separated by formations and never interact with mortals, they are still not in the secular world, but just close to it. The Pure Land sect's practice of building temples in the center of the town obviously not only intervenes in the secular world, but also takes the initiative to become the master of the secular world. The divine sense swept over the government office established by the Great Jin here. As expected, there were only a few people, and the prison had been sealed for a long time. I hope it's not what I thought. Although he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, Luo Hong had already understood the purpose of the Pure Land sect doing this, and he fled into the city with a somewhat ugly look. Dao Luo, don't you go directly to the temple. Seeing Luo Hong landed in a secluded place on the street, Ming asked with some doubts. Don't worry, those monks can't escape. Let's take a look first. Luo Hong restrained his breath and walked on the street like an ordinary person. His eyes were slightly absent-minded because he had completely released his spiritual consciousness. In order to catch the Yuanying Buddhist cultivator of the Pure Land sect, Luo Hong specially chose a town that had not been harmed by evil cultivators, so at that moment, all the creatures in the city fell into his eyes. An inn in the north of the city accidentally caught fire. Although the surrounding people tried their best to put out the fire, it still spread to half of the street. Fortunately, it was daytime, and everyone in the house was awake. Most of them escaped in time, but a few who ran slowly were more or less burned or hit. Then, their relatives and friends helped or carried them to the nearest small temple. The monks in the small temple cast a spell to treat them, and soon all the wounds of these people were healed. The injured and their relatives and friends knelt down to thank the Buddha. An area in the south of the city was separated by a stone wall. The mortals there seemed to have encountered some kind of plague. Regardless of gender, age or status, they were all covered with scabies, weak and vomiting, and looked very scary. Fortunately, there were Buddhist monks living there, making soup for the plague victims. One bowl of soup could restore most of the victims. More than a dozen men and women gathered outside a residential house in the east of the city. They looked at the couple who died tragically in the house, and their faces were full of sighs and resentment. A 5 or 6-year-old boy in the house sat next to his mother's body, not crying or making a fuss. He didn't know what life and death were, and he seemed to be waiting for his mother to wake up and feed him. Not long after, a kind-looking old monk came on the clouds. Everyone hurriedly made way for the old monk to enter the house and take the boy away. No one showed surprise on their faces, as if this kind of thing was not uncommon. A large house in the west of the city also welcomed a Buddhist monk, and he was a quite young monk with a very good appearance. After leaving behind several bottles of elixirs, the young monk wanted to take away the two charming young ladies in the house. Their father and mother not only did not stop him, but congratulated him with lanterns and decorations, as if they had encountered something great. A big city gathers millions of mortals, and the above mentioned things happen all the time. Although there are many sufferings, there are always bodhisattvas to save the world. No matter how you look at it, the city is a prosperous scene. But this is only on the surface. In Luo Hong's consciousness, all the people in the dark and the tricks of the devil cannot escape. Although the Buddhist cultivators of the Pure Land sect treat burns, the fire originated from a firebomb. Although the Buddhist cultivators of the Pure Land sect boil medicine to treat the epidemic, the source of the epidemic is a magic weapon made of thigh bones. Although the Buddhist cultivators of the Pure Land sect adopt orphans, the murderer is a bald head, and the boy actually has spiritual roots. Although the Buddhist cultivators of the Pure Land sect leave elixirs to settle down when they accept women as disciples, judging from Zealing's experience, these female cultivators will definitely not have a good end. All these proved Luo Hong's guess. The Pure Land sect is completely treating mortals as livestock. However, what they eat is not blood, flesh, and money, but the illusory wish power. Although the wish power is invisible, excessive extraction will certainly hurt people's intelligence. This is eating people from the spirit. What a Pure Land sect really good means. After investigating clearly, Luo Hong's face was extremely gloomy, his fists clenched, and his heart was full of anger. To be honest, Luo Hong hasn't been so angry for a long time. Even after witnessing what the Sima family did, he only felt a little disgusted, not angry. But the scene he saw today, whether it was the old shopkeeper kneeling in front of the ruins and crying loudly, or the little girl sitting on the doorstep with scabies on her face and lifeless eyes, or the boy who was about to recognize the thief as his father, all provoked his nerves and pressed on his heart, making his anger grow more and more. The fighting between immortal cultivators would never make Luo Hong so angry, because every immortal cultivator is a competitor on the road to immortality. All immortal cultivators want to live forever, and to achieve immortality, they have to improve their cultivation, which requires various resources. However, resources are limited, and immortal cultivators fight for them, and the law of the jungle becomes inevitable. Some people have good qualifications and can improve their cultivation with fewer resources, while some people have poor qualifications and cannot meet their needs by obtaining resources through normal means. So it is understandable that they embark on the road of killing and robbing treasures. When in the Chaos Star Sea, Luo Hong never got angry at those robber cultivators. Luo Hong only felt displeasure with them, and there was no psychological burden to kill them, and there was no extra emotion. The means of the demons were more ruthless, and they often slaughtered sects, but Luo Hong frowned at most after hearing it. After all, since he had embarked on the track of cultivating immortals, he should be aware of it. Don't think that you can be free from the world just because you think you have no desire to compete, because for other immortal cultivators, you are just robbing their resources just by being alive. It is precisely because of this that Luo Hong was able to keep a calm mind in his 200 years of immortal cultivation. But today, he was completely broken by the Pure Land sect. When it comes to the treatment of mortals, each immortal cultivation system is different. The righteous way is detached from the world. As long as there is no crisis of exterminating a city or a major disaster, the righteous cultivators will not interfere in the affairs of mortals and live in seclusion in the mountains and rivers. The demon way is cruel and profit-seeking. Although there are also blood sacrifices on mortals, they are mostly from low-level demon cultivators, and there are many restrictions. Without a family background, they can't do blood sacrifices even if they want. Most demon cultivators persecute other cultivators. They can't squeeze any money out of mortals, so they are naturally too lazy to care. Therefore, most of the mortals within the influence of the demon sects are in a free-range state. Because of this, these mortals are quite self-reliant, and their scientific and technological levels and social systems are ahead of the mortals on the righteous side. The Buddhist way keeps mortals in captivity, and basic demands can be obtained by praying to Buddha. Although they are comfortable, they are the most backward. Luo Hong even suspected that, if there were no towns of both good and evil around, would these mortals still be living the life of ancient times? However, they were willing to fight, and the other willing to be beaten, and Luo Hong could do nothing about it. Originally thought that Lian sect was the bottom line for mortals in the world of immortal cultivation, but now Luo Hong knows that some people really can treat their own kind as not human. The demons still capture people for blood sacrifice on birthdays, and only a few dozen at a time, but this group of bastard bull donkeys have been spiritually skinning and dismantling the mortals of Bang's house for thousands of years, day after day, generation after generation. Humph. The devil is in the world. Luo Hong laughed in anger, no longer restraining his breath, and took the initiative to release the terrifying spiritual pressure of a late nascent soul cultivator. His figure flashed and appeared above the magnificent temple. Who are you, master? How dare you come to my Pure Land sect to make trouble? You talk too much nonsense. Take Luo's palm first. Chapter 745. Enlightenment. Rage rose from his heart. Luo Hong just wanted to vent it now, not giving the other party time to prepare, so he activated the Rakshasa ghost hand, condensed a black giant palm several dozen feet long, and slapped it directly towards the central hall. The spiritual energy fluctuations above his head were so terrifying that the monks in the temple didn't know that a disaster was coming. They immediately fled to the nearest big formation without hesitation, and worked together to activate the protective formation. a layer of golden light shield condensed rapidly, locking the entire temple in it, and countless Buddhist runes appeared on it. The next moment, as 6 thick golden light pillars rushed up from various parts of the temple and sank into the golden light shield, it suddenly condensed several times, as if it was made of real diamond. The 6-tall diamond formation evolved from the diamond-trapped immortal formation, one of the 10 ancient formations. When presided over by a mid-stage Yuan cultivator, even a late-stage cultivator would have to work hard to break it. At this time, there was more than one mid-stage Yuan Buddhist cultivator in the temple. Brother, this man is coming with great force. He is ruthless. As soon as he shows up, I think he has an old grudge with our sect. Reconciliation is impossible. You quickly use the teleportation array to take the things in the secret vault away. I'm here to buy time for you. An ugly Buddhist cultivator with solid muscles and the appearance of a warrior monk shouted at the white monk beside him, while frantically inputting his mana into the formation under his body. Brother, don't worry. Let me help you block this man's first attack and dampen his spirit. The white monk did not move after hearing this, but instead infused mana more frantically. After 2 sentences, the huge Rakshasa ghost hand had already pressed to the top of the light shield. Although the Rakshasa ghost hand was dozens of feet long, it was like an ant shaking a tree compared to the 6-tall Vajra formation covering the entire temple. However, when the two touched, the golden light shield suddenly sank, and the entire temple shook violently, and the house collapsed, and screams came one after another. But strangely, neither the huge earthquake on the ground nor the turbulent airwaves generated by the collision in the air spread far. It turned out that Luo Hong had grasped the black wind flag in his left hand at some point, controlling a fine wind to surround the battlefield. Although it was only slightly driven, the spatial magical power of the black wind flag was enough to intercept the aftermath of the fight, without worrying about hurting the mortals in the city. With one palm, countless low-level Buddhist cultivators in the temple were hit by the spiritual energy, and died of blood spurting out. Even those high-level Buddhist cultivators with a cultivation base above the giant stage could not help but groan, and blood flowed from the corners of their mouths. In the central hall, the ugly monk and the white-faced monk looked at Hen, and they knew better than anyone the power of Luo Hong's palm just now. It was really just barely holding up, without any margin. The ugly monk immediately gave up his previous idea, otherwise the formation would be broken as soon as the white-faced monk left. By then, those who stayed behind would definitely die, and those who left first would definitely not be able to leave. The only solution now was to continue to resist until the reinforcement arrived. At the critical moment, the white-faced monk was also very sober. Without any hesitation, he immediately sent a message to the disciples guarding the stupa and ordered, "Disciples guarding the stupa, listen up and open the stupa immediately." As soon as the voice fell, a 7-story pagoda in the temple emitted a gorgeous 7-color Buddha light. I don't know how it was connected, but soon such a layer of Buddha light appeared on the golden light shield. In the sky, looking at the changes in the formation below, Luo Hong snorted coldly and said, "Is it using the power of will? But this tortoise shell is really hard." Although Luo Hong attacked in anger, the black wind flag took away a lot of his magic power, so this palm was not his full strength. However, the ordinary palm that could block 70% of his power was enough to prove the power of the formation under him. I wonder how long you can hold out. Unlike Luo Hong who relied on his own strength, the combined power of the Buddhist cultivators in the temple could initially be condensed into one, but with just a few palm strikes, they would be beaten into loose sand. After saying that, Luo Hong was about to raise his right palm to give this group of bald donkeys another hard blow. At this moment, he suddenly felt his right palm pause, and when he glanced, he saw that the Rakshasa ghost hand was tightly entangled by more than 10 Buddha light chains. These chains were born from the golden light shield, and were obviously some kind of forbidden magical power generated by the combination of the formation and the power of will. Luo Hong tried to disperse the giant palm below, and condense it again, but found that he could not do it under the wonderful forbidden magical power. His face sank, and Luo Hong immediately clenched the black wind flag, and was about to activate the space magical power of this treasure to break the ban. But the next moment, a mysterious feeling suddenly rose from his heart. For no reason, his thoughts were separated from the battle, and the scene of Yaoshan Kunpeng reaching out his claws in the demon suppression tower appeared in front of him. When Yaoshan Kunpeng's giant claws reached into the human world, countless chains of laws were also entangled, which was very similar to the current situation. Luo Hong's sudden dullness immediately attracted Yang Ming's attention. She tilted her head and looked for a moment, then suddenly showed a look of surprise, muttering to herself, "I suddenly realized it during the fight. This guy's really like the master." Luo Hong's abnormal state did not last long. After only 3 breaths, his eyes regained clarity, and then his right palm suddenly became a claw, raised it up a little, and then pressed it down with a bang. During this period, although the 2 monks in the temple did not know what situation Luo Hong encountered, they were not idle at all, and frantically invested their mana, spirit stones and willpower into the formation. In just 3 breaths, they not only repaired the damage to the formation when the first palm was struck, but also made it 20% stronger than the initial one. It was thought that after the black giant palm was restrained by the Liuli law, the unfamiliar late stage master would definitely use other means to try to break the formation, but the facts obviously did not develop as the 2 expected. The black giant palm suddenly lifted up, as if it wanted to use brute force to tear off the chain, transformed by the glass prohibition. However, although the Buddha light chain was pulled and made a crackling sound, it still entangled the black giant palm tightly. The next moment, the black giant palm suddenly changed into a claw, and then pressed down again. Although this change was extremely simple, all the Buddhist practitioners who witnessed this scene couldn't help but jump in their hearts, and their spiritual senses inexplicably sensed a wild breath. Then, as if they were in an illusion, the black giant claw in their eyes turned into the giant claw of an unknown monster bird. However, before they could figure out what this meant, a shocking loud noise exploded above their heads. Immediately afterwards, all the Buddhist practitioners in the eye of the formation, no matter what their cultivation level was, were blown away by the huge recoil force, and their lives and deaths were unknown. It turned out that at this time, the golden light shield transformed by the 6-door Vajra formation was actually shattered by a blow. The remaining part was also full of cracks, and was rapidly disintegrating. The temple under the light shield was hit by the residual energy, and collapsed beyond recognition. Except for the central hall, there was no standing building. Although the golden light shield was shattered with one blow, Luo Hong was not in a hurry to fly down and kill those Yuanying Buddhist practitioners. Instead, he stayed in the sky with his eyes closed and comprehended what he had just gained. Yang Ming took the initiative to isolate the world, so that Luo Hong could no longer hear the noisy wind, and only the crackling sound of white electricity jumping on his body. In the central hall, the white-faced monk was kneeling beside the ugly monk, with red eyes, injecting magic power into his body. Brother, hold on. Brother, don't waste your energy. The backlash of the broken formation has hit my Yuanying with thousands of holes. Even if the master of the transformation of the spirit is alive, he can't save the situation. Only if I die immediately can I have hope of reincarnation. Brother, run away. As the host of the formation, the ugly monk suffered the most backlash. However, under normal circumstances, he, a Buddhist cultivator in the middle stage of the nascent soul, would not be unable to preserve his nascent soul. He had such an end because, first, Luo Hong's attack was too quick and fierce, leaving him no room to mitigate the backlash, and second, he took the initiative to bear the backlash from the white-faced monk. Haha, junior brother, I will go to the Pure Land first, and reunite with you in the future to visit the Mingfei Palace again. Seeing that the white-faced monk still refused to leave, the ugly monk laughed, as if he was in his last moments, and used his magic power to shake the other party away, and the nascent soul immediately formed a seal of dissolving the soldiers. Senior brother. The white-faced monk clenched his fists and roared, but he knew that the situation was irreversible, so he looked up and glared at Luo Hong in the sky, as if he wanted to remember his figure forever in his mind. Asshole, I will kill you in the future. After uttering a cruel word with gritted teeth, the white-faced monk took out a talisman from his arms and disappeared on the spot with a flash of inspiration. When he reappeared, he was already in the underground transmission hall. Ignoring the dust that occasionally fell from his head, the white-faced monk quickly fled into the hall and flew towards the nearest transmission array. However, as soon as he entered the transmission hall, He saw several surviving giant and guardians arguing with the foundation building disciples in charge of this place. "What are you doing? Hurry up and activate the transmission array to evacuate. The enemy has not come down yet." I'm afraid he used a secret method to break through the protective array and is still adjusting his breath. He is a late stage cultivator and we don't have much time left. The white-faced monk landed in front of everyone and shouted with veins popping out of his head, "Uncle Master, Uncle Master, it's not that we don't know the situation is critical, but this disciple actually said that the transmission array cannot be opened. We were in a hurry and behaved a little excitedly." A late-stage giant and Buddhist cultivator said anxiously. In fact, the white-faced monk knew that the disciples who were able to come here alive must have been cunning and sly in the previous fight. Otherwise, even if they were not dead, they would be seriously injured by the backlash. In other words, if these people had just responded with all their strength and shared more of the backlash, his senior brother might not have died. Although he hated it in his heart, the white-faced monk knew that this was not the time to pursue it, so he hurriedly asked, "Why can't we teleport?" "Space restriction. We are shrouded in space restriction." The foundation building disciple in charge of the teleportation hall said with a pale face. "In this case, why don't you activate the counterattack formation? Space restriction is a common means for the enemy to besiege a stronghold during a war of forces. As an old force, every large stronghold of the Pure Land sect has a counterattack formation. Once this formation is activated, it will stir the surrounding space, create turbulence, and break the enemy's blockade. In this way, the teleportation formation that was originally unable to be activated can be used. However, due to the spatial turbulence, the teleportation array at this time will not be able to accurately teleport, and there will be strict restrictions on cultivation. For example, the large teleportation array that can teleport people tens of thousands of miles away will only be used by Yuanying cultivators. If those with cultivation below Yuanying insist on using it, they will inevitably be torn apart by the power of space. The disciple was about to activate the counter array, but the uncle and the others suddenly rushed in to question him, which delayed it until now. The foundation building Buddhist cultivator hurriedly explained. "What are you waiting for? Where is the formation? We are here to help you." Without waiting for the white-faced monk to give orders, a group of giant and guardians surrounded the foundation building Buddhist cultivator and flew to the high platform on the other side. Not long after, 7 or 8 pillars of magic power shot out from their palms and hit the center of the high platform directly. Soon, a rich silver spiritual light emerged on the top of the high platform, and circles of spiritual waves rippled out, making the entire hall buzz. "It's okay, the formation is activated." Seeing this, the foundation building Buddhist cultivator said with ecstasy on his face. "Anyway, we are not many people. This formation is enough for one use." The Buddha cultivator of the Dunji stage seemed to be a little worried. He took out a silver gray stone from his storage bag, shook his wrist, and threw it onto the platform. Suddenly, the spiritual energy fluctuations of the formation on the platform surged, and then the silver spiritual light began to flicker. "It's coming, seniors. Quickly stand on the teleportation formation," the Buddha cultivator of the foundation building reminded, but when he looked back, he was the only one still standing there. Standing alone in the center of the large teleportation formation, the white-faced monk clenched his fists with a ferocious look, vowing to make the enemy of today die. As time passed, the silver light emitted by the formation on the platform flickered more and more, which meant that the space turbulence it stirred became more and more violent. But after another 3 breaths, the silver light flickered like a convulsion, and the teleportation formation under everyone's feet still did not change at all. Just as they were wondering, there was a sudden explosion, followed by 2 screams. Everyone looked in the direction of the sound, and saw that the original high platform had turned into a pile of rubble, with an extremely smooth cross-section. On a teleportation array in the distance, 2 Buddha cultivators at the Dun stage were cut in half by something unknown. One of them had his chest and abdomen cut diagonally, and died on the spot, while the other was cut in half and was wailing. "How could this happen? Asshole, what did you throw into the formation just now?" "It's none of my business." In the midst of the noise, a voice suddenly came, and it entered everyone's ears very clearly. Space restrictions also have strong and weak points. You can't escape. As the words were spoken, Luo Hong's figure appeared above the broken high platform, and the black wind flag in his left hand was moving without wind. Who are you? What grudge do you have with our sect, that you want to kill us all like this? The moment he saw Luo Hong, the white-faced monk knew that he was dead today, and at this time he spoke very calmly. It was just a small grudge before, but after staying in the city for half a day today, I had no choice but to take action to eliminate the demon. Because of the sudden realization just now, Luo Hong's mood changed a little, and he responded immediately. Chapter 746. Heaven's Favor. What? But what have our disciples done to offend us? Senior, just tell me, I will punish them severely. The group of Jinden Buddhist cultivators just wanted to survive, and they didn't care what Luo Hong meant by eliminating the demon, so they immediately expressed their opinions. Haha, that's fine. If you commit suicide immediately, I can let your souls go into reincarnation. After all, I'm not an ancient demon. Luo Hong smiled softly and looked coldly at the Buddhist cultivators in the hall. Senior, every grievance has its perpetrator. Don't you think it's a bit too much to vent your anger on others? Another Jinden Buddhist cultivator was immediately desperate when he heard this and asked angrily, regardless of the difference in cultivation. Excessive? Luo Hong uttered these two words slowly, then closed his eyes and took a deep breath, then suddenly opened his eyes and said sharply, "You all know what excessive means? When you burned houses and destroyed your career, did you ever feel excessive? When you created epidemics, did you ever feel excessive? When you killed people's parents and forced people to shave their heads, did you ever feel excessive? When you seduced people's flesh and blood and took the essence of Ming Fei, did you ever feel excessive?" When the last word fell, Luo Hong waved his sleeves angrily, and suddenly an invisible force surged out, tearing down one wall of the teleportation hall. Through the gap, you can just see the scene in Ming Fei's palace separated by a wall. In the magnificent palace, many female cultivators fell to the ground in exposed clothes. Each of them looked beautiful and bright, with a rosy complexion, but that was just an illusion created by the elixir. In Luo Hong's consciousness, these female cultivators had very weak auras, and their vitality was seriously damaged. It was estimated that each of them had only half of their original lifespan left. Hearing Luo Hong's angry questioning, those stand-forming Buddha cultivators looked at each other, not quite understanding. But this was not surprising. With their status, they had long since stopped doing those dirty things, so naturally they did not know what Luo Hong was talking about. However, the white-faced monk was quite excited after hearing this, as if he had already understood the reason why Luo Hong came to his door this time. Just because of this? Just because of those mortals, you killed my senior brother. The white-faced monk changed his calm appearance just now. His eyes were filled with bloodshot, and veins on his head bulged, and he roared like a madman. We, the disciples of the Pure Land sect, have protected mortals for tens of thousands of years, making them prosperous and well-fed. Now we just ask them to contribute a little bit of strength. Is this wrong? Buddha protects all living beings, and all living beings worship Buddha. This is the way of heaven. Haha, the way of heaven? What do you know about the way of heaven? Hahaha. After hearing the white-faced monk's accusation at the top of his lungs, Luo Hong seemed to have heard the funniest thing in the world, and he laughed non-stop for a while. You. Seeing this, the white-faced monk was furious. If he had not been no match for Luo Hong, I'm afraid he would have smashed him with a magic weapon by now. After a while, Luo Hong's laughter slowed down, and he shook his head and looked at the white-faced monk jokingly, saying, "Today, Luo Hong's action to subdue the demon was just an impulse, but he never expected that he would be favored by the heavenly Dao and be able to realize that claw on the spot. It is incredible to think that I, Luo Hong, would be favored by the heavenly Dao. It can be seen that it is easy to abuse the people, but it is difficult to deceive the heavenly Dao. You have already angered the heaven, but you don't know it yet." Nonsense. What are you talking about? The white-faced monk had no idea of the relationship between Luo Hong and the heavenly Dao, so he naturally couldn't understand the meaning of Luo Hong's words, and roared without any remorse. "Humph. That's all the nonsense. Luo Hong doesn't need to teach you. All of you, go to hell. After venting his anger at the white-faced monk, Luo Hong's suppressed emotions were released, which also made him no longer want to continue talking nonsense. With a thought, the power of heaven and earth suddenly descended on every Buddhist cultivator in the teleportation hall. Suddenly, the sound of puff came one after another, and those who had no resistance were instantly crushed into meat patties. Although the white-faced monk did not die instantly, he was pressed to the ground with broken bones and tendons, and blood was gushing out of his mouth and nose. In his bulging eyes, there was not only resentment, but also deep unwillingness. This unwillingness did not come from his own powerlessness, but from his misunderstanding of the reason why Luo Hong took action. Until the last moment, he still felt that it was incredible that he and his senior brother died because of a mere mortal. After 3 breaths, Luo Hong turned into a blue escape light and flew away, returning to the sky. His face was no longer happy with the purpose achieved, but was frighteningly gloomy. Fellow Daoist Luo, this is not your original plan, right? Why did you suddenly change it? Ming did not remain silent, because Luo Hong was now in a bad mood, but asked out of curiosity. Before coming to Ziling's house, Luo Hong had told her about the Pure Land sect's painful plan. Ming remembered it very clearly. The core of the plan was to be secretive, and kill the Pure Land sect's Union cultivators outside without making any noise. As long as enough people were killed, the Pure Land sect's bold donkeys would not approach the Wanjian sect again. However, the current situation has obviously deviated from this plan. Luo Hong has raised a Buddhist temple in a big city, and killed thousands of Pure Land sect disciples. It is no different from declaring war directly. According to this situation, either the Pure Land sect will be furious and send a large number of high-level Buddhist cultivators to encircle Luo Hong, or the Pure Land sect will shrink its forces under the pressure of Luo Hong and withdraw all the high-level Buddhist cultivators back to the sect. Anyway, no matter which one it is very different from the original plan. Luo originally just wanted to make the Pure Land sect feel pain, so that they would not always have the idea of attacking the Wanjian sect. But now, Luo is going to destroy this sect. Looking at the ruins under his feet, Luo Hong said calmly, "Why? Just because these monks oppress mortals." Ming was just a spiritual puppet after all. At this time, she could not empathize with Luo Hong. This is just an inducement. It is mainly because Luo has the power to make rules, but the current rules of the Pure Land sect are just unbearable for Luo Hong. Even at this time, Luo Hong was still rational. He did not use justice to flaunt his behavior. He just had the ability to do this, and wanted to do it. Sure enough, the minds of the human race are not so easy to guess. Ming puffed up his cheeks, and did not force himself to understand Luo Hong. Then he raised his eyebrows and said, "So, are you going to save those women next?" "I'm not bragging, it's definitely better to leave this to me than to do it yourself." Ming said this, and the words "beg me" were written on her face. It seems that she really doesn't like to owe favors to others. Luo Hong secretly complained, but did not give a positive answer. The Pure Land sect's territory is so huge that even if he and Ming are both great masters, they can't save everyone. But as long as the Pure Land sect is destroyed, everything can be solved. Chapter 747 Thunder Immortal Body Technique. There is no profound reason in this. As long as the Pure Land sect is destroyed, the surrounding Lian sect and other sects will naturally expand their power. At that time, the new rules will replace the old rules, and Luo Hong will achieve his goal. I really don't think about it. They look so pitiful. Hey, don't leave. Before Ming finished speaking, Luo Hong took back the black wind flag and flew away. Just as Luo Hong was leaving, 2 Buddhist monks with strange behavior came to the Yingxin pavilion in the border town of Lian sect. One of the middle-aged monks had kind eyes and the temperament of a Taoist monk. The other little monk looked only 12 or 13 years old, but he seemed to have seen through the world and his eyes were extremely clear. However, the most strange thing was that the middle-aged monk was extremely respectful to the little monk, as if he was the master of the other. Qi Shanshan looked at the old and young who came to her house, and after hesitating for a moment, she decided to tell the truth. Master Luo and Master Ying left a few days ago. They just told us to return to the sect after we recovered from our injuries, but they didn't say where they were going. Yanjing, it seems that the purpose of this trip of the Buddhist disciple is not as simple as you said. The little monk said calmly. Master Luo and I have an average relationship. If he has other important things to do in Zilingzhou, it is natural that he would not tell me. The middle-aged monk was Yanjing, who had become more scheming. This guy knew that Luo Hong resisted practicing Buddhism, and seeing that his cultivation had far surpassed his own, he deliberately let Luo Hong misunderstand that he had no original intention. As a result, as soon as Luo Hong left, he went to find the living Buddha of transformation, to stab Luo Hong in the back. The two did not carry Qi Shanshan when they talked, so when she heard what they said, she couldn't help but regret it, thinking whether she should give some wrong information. These two Buddhist practitioners seemed to have bad intentions. Strange, didn't Uncle Qi say that our sect had formed an alliance with the Lian sect? Why did this happen? Just as he was wondering, the little monk said lightly, 3 donors, may I ask which direction your uncle went? Before Qi Shanshan could think clearly, Hao Jin on the side blurted out, the 2 uncles were sitting at this table at the time, and then they suddenly disappeared. We don't know where they went. This table? Thank you, donor. The little monk nodded. Hao Jin was confused. Did he say anything useful? Why should he thank him? Fortunately, the scene that appeared in the next moment directly answered his doubts, but he didn't want it. I saw that the little monk offered an unpolished dark yellow stone, and lightly touched his finger, and a ray of light flew out of the stone. This dark yellow ray of light rolled up the table, and time seemed to flow backwards, and scenes of illusions flashed by quickly. Soon, the figures of Luo Hong and Yingming appeared in front of them. At this time, the speed of the illusion flashing suddenly slowed down, and the fast rewind became normal playback. As the figures of Luo Hong and the others disappeared, the little monk couldn't help but reveal a satisfied smile on his face. Let's go, Yanjing. Let's go to the Pure Land sect. As soon as the voice fell, the figures of the little monk and Yanjing disappeared in the hall. Only Qi Shanshan and the other 2 were still shocked and couldn't close their mouths. After a long time, Hao Jin said in a sad voice, Senior sister, did I get into trouble? Hey, this is not your fault. All we can do is hope that they are friends rather than enemies. Qi Shanshan sighed. After seeing the little monk's means of reversing time, she didn't know that she had met a Buddhist master. They were lucky not to die, let alone do some small actions. At this time, Luo Hong didn't know that Yanjing had brought a Buddhist cultivator to capture him as a monk. He was now sitting cross-legged in a stone cave on an unnamed spiritual peak to practice. The higher the cultivation level, the greater the gains from sudden enlightenment. Luo Hong thought that he would never encounter such a good thing in the human world again, but he happened to encounter it a few days ago. It was not easy, so he naturally had to comprehend and absorb it well, and not waste any of it. Therefore, the matter of destroying the Pure Land sect could only be postponed for a few days. Yingming sat cross-legged opposite Luo Hong today, which was unusual. If it were normal, she would not watch Luo Hong practice in silence. But this time, she really wanted to know what Luo Hong gained from sudden enlightenment. Although she had seen something that day, it was only a small part after all. As the thunder of Bilibili sounded, many small white electric currents suddenly jumped on Luo Hong's body. He raised his right palm in front of his eyes, stared at it for a moment, and suddenly clenched it, making a huge explosion, and the cave trembled twice. How is it? How is it? What wool did you get from the heavenly Dao? Yingming leaned forward slightly and asked with great interest. Haha, this is really a big harvest. That attack just now was a method of using thunder to stimulate the body. When Luo Hong saw the lightning dragon jumping on the giant claws of Yaoshan Kunpeng that day, he thought it was just an ordinary method of using thunder to amplify the attack. But in the state of enlightenment, Luo Hong's eyes seemed to be able to see through, and saw the energy flow inside the giant claws. Only then did he know that compared with the Kunpeng real thunder flowing in the giant claws, the few lightning dragons that appeared outside were just a drop in the bucket. Then, Luo Hong comprehended a secret method from it, Thunder Immortal Body Technique. This secret method has 2 magical powers. One is very obvious, which is to stimulate the body and greatly increase the explosive power. The increase multiple is closely related to the thunder method used. The stronger the thunder method, the higher the increase. Using the 5 element of thunder like Luo Hong can increase the strength of the body by about 50%. If it is replaced with the purple thunder, it may be twice as much. Of course, if Luo Hong really used it, he would be killed by the purple sky divine thunder before he could kill the man. It is not easy to inject thunder magic into one's own meridians, blood, and flesh. First, one must have a certain degree of physical training foundation, and second, one must have a good control ability. Otherwise, once it is forcibly used, the cultivator will definitely fail. After cultivating the innate 5 element body, Luo Hong can use his own magic power to transform the 5 element divine thunder. The control ability is naturally good, and the foundation of physical training is no problem. In this way, he can use this secret technique in actual combat, just after he comprehends it. As for the other magical power of the thunder immortal body technique, it is not so obvious. According to what he has comprehended in the dark, if this technique is used for many years, it will make the cultivator have some resistance to thunder tribulation, but the specific degree is not too clear. What else? You are not taking advantage of the heaven, there must be benefits. Ming opened his big eyes and looked at Luo Hong with certainty. Hey, do you know so much? Luo Hong asked in surprise. He originally wanted to keep it a secret. Chapter 748, Pure Land Plan. Of course. No one understands enlightenment better than me. Ming thought that her master was an expert in enlightenment. She had seen pigs run, and she had seen them run more than once, so she naturally understood it very well. Well, it's nothing, actually. I just comprehended a trace of the law of force. Hearing her say this, Luo Hong no longer concealed it. Anyway, no one else could take away what he had comprehended, so he said with a smile, "Is it really a law? You made a fortune." Damn it. Although she had expected it, after getting a positive answer from Luo Hong, Ming still showed extreme envy. She understood enlightenment better than anyone else today, but she herself had never tried it once. The law of force, there is only a trace, which on the surface, is less than the law of fire contained in the black crow true flame, not to mention the law contained in the Tangshan Ling Bao. But the meaning of this trace of the law of force is more important than both. This is the law that Luo Hong comprehended himself, which is not comparable to those laws of external objects. The main difference is that this law of silk power has the potential for growth. It is like a seed. As long as Luo Hong cultivates it carefully, it will take root and sprout, grow vigorously, and then grow from silk to strands, and then condense into strands. As the saying goes, everything is difficult at the beginning, and this is particularly evident in the law. If you can't find the door, you can't find it. There is no reason to talk about it. People like Luo Hong who accidentally opened the door to the law are simply the envy of all cultivators below the Mahayana. Of course, although it has the potential for growth, it is not easy to operate in practice. If Luo Hong immerses himself in this way in the future, he will definitely follow the footsteps of Day and Shenzhen. But even if the efficiency is not high, Luo Hong still decided to spend some time on the law of power after the transformation. Just because, when he looked inward just now, he touched the top of his head with the little hand of the nascent soul, and the black shadow formed by the group of demon seeds was clearly fed back. You know, Luo Hong had tried countless ways before, and there was no force that could touch it, but after using the law of force, things seemed to have taken a turn for the better. Sure enough, the reason why the heavenly demon seed was so tricky was because it contained the power of the law. Although Luo Hong had external objects that contained the power of the law before, only this kind of self-power that could be integrated into the nascent soul and driven by an arm could have such a change, and was also suitable for use on his own nascent soul. Using the law to defeat the law, Luo Hong suddenly saw a new way to save himself. Whoever wants to participate in the battle of the demon essence, Luo Hong is going to find another way out anyway. Since the gains of enlightenment have been digested, should we set out to destroy the Pure Land sect? After being envious, Ming immediately became uninterested. She didn't want to accompany Luo Hong to practice in this wild cave in the mountains, and wanted to go out and have fun. Therefore, although she had no grudges against the Pure Land sect, she urged him at the moment. This is something that needs to be considered carefully. A few days ago, I was very emotional and a little bit uncalm, so I overlooked some details. After a few days, Luo Hong was no longer as angry as he was that day, and he couldn't help but think more. The Pure Land sect must be destroyed. There is no doubt about that. Otherwise his thoughts would not be clear. But Luo Hong would not rush in like a hot-blooded protagonist, but he had to use some strategies. Just as he was thinking, he suddenly had a spiritual thought and saw two streams of light falling on his palms. After the spiritual light dissipated, 9 relics appeared on Luo Hong's right palm, 7 of which were the spoils he obtained from the stupa, and the other 2 were naturally contributed by the 2 Yuanying Buddhist cultivators that day. In comparison, the thing on Luo Hong's left palm seemed ordinary, just a Michiro bowl. However, this was not the kind he got from the Sima family, but the Michiro bowl that he found in the secret library of the Buddhist temple that he destroyed that day, and it had been used by someone. The only difference between the two is that one is empty and the other is filled with something. Luo Hong recognized at a glance that the colorless liquid emitting colorful Buddha light was rippling in the mitzvah bowl. These liquids were the materialized wish power. These monks are really strange. They clearly have relics that can store wish power, but they still want to refine this kind of magic tool in large quantities. I really don't understand what they are thinking. Ming shook her head slightly. She saw Luo Hong smash the secret vault with her own eyes that day, so she naturally knew that Luo Hong had more than 1 or 2 magic tools in his hand. Those overseas evil cultivators who acted to deceive wish power must be supported by the Pure Land sect behind the scenes. These bull donkeys are so unscrupulous in collecting wish power, and they must have a huge plan in secret. Luo Hong looked at the mitzvah bowl in his hand and frowned deeply. According to the existing information, he has seen the first half of this plan. The Pure Land sect first drove the peripheral forces to use the immortal cultivators to refine a large number of mitzvah bowls that can replace relics and store wish power. Its purpose is nothing more than 2. First, the existing Serera isn't sufficient to store the wish power needed by the Pure Land sect to carry out its secret plan, and these Michiro bowls are needed to supplement it. Second, it is to conceal the truth. Large-scale collection of wish power will inevitably cause the local mortals to degenerate and cause great unrest. Because mortals who belong to the same Buddhist forces are easy to be exploited, the top leaders of the Pure Land sect are very clear that once they take action, they will inevitably attract investigations from Buddhist sects such as the Lion sect. The wish power is unfamiliar to the cultivators of the righteous and evil ways, but for Buddhist cultivators, there are many ways to detect and sense it. Therefore, the collected wish power must not be gathered in the body of the Buddhist cultivator and the sect. Similarly, the wish power of the Serera must not increase sharply, or the number of it must not suddenly decrease. Although Luo Hong did not know how the Pure Land sect invented the Michiro bowl, it solved the above 2 problems very well, since it not only provides a place for the power of vows to be stored, but also does not change the relics on the surface. The Buddhist practitioners from other Buddhist sects who come to investigate will naturally erase the suspicion of the Pure Land sect due to the inertial thinking. And judging from the number of Michiro bowls in a big city, the Sima family is obviously not the only immortal cultivation force that did this, but it must be the only one that was destroyed. Otherwise that Bizin would not take the risk and sneak into the Wanjian gate, which is suspected to have a late-stage Yuanying cultivator. It must be that the Pure Land sect was anxious after receiving the news, so it issued a death order. When the Pure Land sect had enough Michiro bowls, they began the second step of their secret plan, which was the chaos of the evil cultivators that just passed. It seems that their plan is now stuck between the second and third steps. After all, the situation is tense now. If they immediately start to concentrate the Michiro bowls hidden in various places, it is very likely to be exposed. Haha, then the great elder of the Pure Land sect must be furious now. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 749, Man Proposes, God Proposes. In the Grand Buddhist Hall at the Pure Land sect's headquarters, the Grand Elder Bxiu, who used to look dignified, now looked nothing like a high-level monk. With his eyes wide open, he shouted at the Dharma protector disciple who came to report the news. "Why haven't we found any useful information about what happened 3 days ago until today? What does your master do for a living? Grand Elder, please forgive me." None of the high-level fellow disciples in the Luo Jincheng branch temple were spared. They were all killed. The few low-level disciples who survived were scared out of their wits. No matter how much we asked, we only knew that the visitor was a great cultivator in the late nascent soul stage, and the other party claimed to be surnamed Luo. As for why he destroyed the temple, where he went, and his magical powers, they knew nothing. Although my master has some magical powers to detect, the other party's cultivation is too high, so he is really powerless. Please understand, Grand Elder. The Jiden Buddhist cultivator who came to report the news replied in fear and trepidation, while cursing his master in his heart. Normally, he was not there when we went to Mingfei Palace, but he was the first one to be blamed. Consideration? You guys still have the nerve to ask me to forgive you? Do you know how big a disaster this is? BXIU was extremely angry. Not only did he roar regardless of his status, he also violently released the mana of the late nascent soul stage and blasted the Dan Buddha cultivator away. At this time, a nascent soul elder beside him waved his hand and sent out a gust of north wind, blowing the severely injured and blood-vomiting Dan Buddha cultivator out of the hall. Brother, calm down. This matter cannot be rushed, and it may not be the worst outcome. Hey. The branch temple in Luojin City was destroyed, and even the secret vault was turned out. The secret bowls we hid there have been exposed. How can it not be the worst outcome? In a few days, I'm afraid that the old guy from the Lion sect will bring people here to question me. BXIU sat down heavily on the golden lotus cushion, frowning, with a worried look, as if he saw the scene of being besieged by the other two major Buddhist sects. Brother, what junior brother Biyuan said is right. It may not be the worst outcome. Don't you remember why junior brother Bizin was sent out? Another Yuanying elder who was wearing a purple gold cassock and had a higher level of cultivation said solemnly. Bizin, isn't he going to investigate Wanjian? Isn't the person who founded Wanjian sect also surnamed Luo? BXIU's eyes lit up, as if he suddenly saw hope, and he immediately regained his composure, and then he let out a long sigh with a guilty look on his face. I'm obsessed with this matter. There is indeed a chance of turning this matter around. Senior brother is just worried and confused. We can all understand that. But since that donor Luo is going to take revenge, I think junior brother Bizin is most likely in danger. Bu sighed lightly. He had a good relationship with Bizin. Having said that, it is a blessing in disguise. If the ones who took action were the late-stage masters of the other two sects, our century-long plan would have certainly been wasted. But why was junior brother Bizin so careless? He actually brought such a powerful enemy to our sect at such a critical moment. This man is extremely brutal and cruel. He destroyed temples and killed people. He is extremely ruthless. I'm afraid he will not stop easily. Great Elder, how should we deal with this donor Luo? Although he probably doesn't know about our sect's plan, if we let him go on, I'm afraid that the other two sects will become suspicious. If they then find out about Guangnan Prefecture, I'm afraid the lid will not be kept off. The Yuanying elders and the Buddhist hall discussed one after another. BXIU was silent for a moment and then suddenly spoke, and the Buddhist hall fell silent. Luo the thief killed our disciples, so we should not let him go easily. But this is the critical moment of our sect's century-long plan, and we should not make things complicated. Biyuan, take my warrant in this formation, and try to mobilize the Yuanying elders around Luojin City to deal with Luo the thief, and make sure he does not commit crimes again. But if Luo the thief has left Zilingzhou, you don't have to pursue him. When our sect's plan is completed, we will deal with it. After saying this, BXIU threw out 2 streams of light from his sleeves. Seeing this, Biyuan immediately reached out to take it, and then stood up to salute. Wait, junior brother, Luo the thief dared to go deep into our sect to commit crimes, and junior brother Bizin was most likely killed by him. I think his magical powers are quite powerful. Although junior brother has the formation given by the great elder, he must not underestimate the enemy. I can't help much, so I will lend this treasure to you first. The Yuanying elder, whose cultivation level was second only to BXIU, suddenly called Biyun, stroked his stanchion with his right palm, and took out a 5-colored hill, and threw it to Biyun. Although there were many damaged parts on the 5-colored hill, the spiritual energy was extremely amazing. Biyun was stunned on the spot after taking it. Senior brother, this is your Tangshan broken treasure. Are you really willing to lend it to me? Haha, if I hadn't been unable to leave the sect temporarily, I would definitely go with you this time, not to mention lending you a treasure. The Yuanying elder smiled and waved his hand, saying indifferently, thank you, junior brother. Junior brother Biyun, please check the situation of the secret vaults in each city on your trip. We have not informed our fellow disciples in the branch temples of the great plan, so they may be slack. Okay, junior brother, I've made a note of it. After a simple response, Biyun knew the situation was urgent, so he did not delay any longer, and suddenly left in a streak of red light. In the stone cave of the barren mountain, Ming had just listened to Luo Hong's analysis, and said with some disbelief, the Pure Land sect will definitely send high-level officials to encircle and suppress you? You know, the strength of this top-level immortal cultivation force may be less than half of its overall strength. Why should those monks go far away? Can't they just issue a transfer order and let the Yuanying Buddhist cultivators in the surrounding cities come to besiege you? Because they are panicking. They must be panicking to death now, but they can only comfort themselves that the plan has not been exposed. Luo Hong, am just a ruthless lunatic who will take revenge for any slight, and I will definitely get revenge for any slight. So in order to prevent the Buddhist cultivators in the branch temple from working without effort, the Pure Land sect must send at least one high-level official who knows the inside story to preside over the encirclement and suppression. After all, these bull donkeys are very smart. Without anyone to suppress them, who would be willing to trouble me, a late Yuanying cultivator? Maybe they will meet me during the search, and pretend not to meet me. Luo Hong said with a joking, but firm look on his face, as if he saw the scene of discussion in the Buddhist hall. The human race nowadays is so complicated, and not pleasant at all, unlike my master who always eats, wherever he goes without any detours. Ming complained a little frustrated, and then couldn't help but asked curiously, are you going to kill that high-level monk next to weaken the power of the Pure Land sect? Yes and no. Although we have to kill him, Luo wants to know the third step of the plan, which is the ultimate goal of these bull donkeys. Isn't this the key? If we go directly to their door, won't their plan be aborted? Why do we have to make it so clear? Could it be that brother Luo wants to intercept and do it himself? Ming tilted his head and said in confusion, I'm not interested in this kind of plan that can only be achieved by eating mortals. It's just that I'm a little worried about the heavenly Dao. This sudden enlightenment may seem delicious, but it may be a hidden trap. You think too much. The heavenly Dao is not so treacherous. My master has had sudden enlightenment more than once or twice. I'm very familiar with this. It's not that I want to think too much. I'm really confident that I can annoy the heavenly Dao. Chapter 750. Clouds moving in all directions. Heaven and earth are unkind and treat all things as straw dogs. Humans are affectionate, but heaven is ruthless. In Luo Hong's opinion, what the Pure Land sect did to mortals was extremely evil and unforgivable. But for the heaven, these are probably just minor problems. After all, the Pure Land sect's territory is insignificant compared to the entire human world, and humans are not the only living creatures. When he was furious that day, Luo Hong thought that he had an epiphany because the Pure Land sect had angered heaven, and he was rewarded for following heaven's will. But now that he thinks about it carefully, he feels that it is unlikely. Even if the merits and demerits can be offset, Luo Hong does not think that he can get such a big gain just by destroying a branch temple. After thinking about it, there are only two possibilities behind this. One is that what the Pure Land sect is planning must be extremely contrary to the heaven, and it will anger heaven more than their harm to hundreds of millions of mortals. The second is that this is completely a trap set by the heaven, throwing a bait for him to bite, and then hitting the Pure Land sect with a bloody head. They might even come together to trick him into working for them and set a trap for him. If this is the so-called calamity, then it really seems like I can't escape it. After all, even if I realize something is wrong, I can't give up the idea of destroying the Pure Land sect. But before I face the calamity, I have to see the opponent's trump card first. Luo Hong pondered for a moment, then suddenly his eyes focused, and then he stood up and looked at Yang Ming. Fellow Daoist Yang Ming, from today on, we will go west. Two flowers bloom, each with its own meaning. Just as Luo Hong started to act, the little living Buddha and Yanjing had tracked him to Luojin City. Seeing the chaos in the city and the temples being razed to the ground, Yanjing was shocked and said with a gloomy face, "But the evil spirit in this city is overwhelming. I'm afraid that thousands of Buddhist cultivators have been killed or injured. Could it be that Brother Luo did it? There are two mid-nascent soul Zen masters Heikang and Heiming stationed in Luojin City all year round, and there is a large formation to protect it. Only a cultivator in the late nascent soul stage could cause such destruction." Therefore, although Yanjing asked the question at the moment, he had already guessed that it was Luo Hong who did it, but he didn't want to believe that a Buddhist disciple would commit such a murderous act. Looking at the ruins of the temple whose foundation had sunk half a foot, and the surrounding houses of ordinary people whose tiles were intact, the young living Buddha could not help showing a look of surprise, but soon he chuckled and said, "Interesting. Could it be that I have made a mistake? Brother Yanjing, does that donor Luo have any old grudges with the Pure Land sect?" Living Buddha, calm down. Maybe donor Luo was just confused for a moment. I believe that, as long as we take him back to the temple to cultivate his mind with Buddhist teachings, he will be able to return to the right path. As for whether he has any old grudges with the Pure Land sect, this junior is not sure, but it is highly likely that he does not. After all, donor Luo was born in Cheyenne and came to Dajin alone to travel. It is impossible for fellow Pure Land sect members to offend the people around him, and he himself has achieved great success in cultivation. Now, in the entire Pure Land sect, only Zen Master Bixio can be compared with him. As everyone knows, Zen Master Bixio has not left the sect for hundreds of years, so how could he have a rift with donor Luo? However, looking at his whereabouts, this junior does find it a bit strange. Patron Luo said that he came from Guangnan Prefecture and casually founded a sect there. He came to Zilingsao this time to help the younger generation with this sect in the future. As a result, he just finished explaining, and then he ran to Luojin City to kill people and destroy temples, which really made the younger generation confused. But if there is a hidden story, it must be related to the Wanjian sect. Yanjing felt that Luo Hong's behavior was simply contradictory. He just came to form an alliance with him, and then he took ruthless action on the territory of the Pure Land sect, which was on good terms with the Lian sect. In this way, what he did before would be in vain. Therefore, the whole thing gave Yanjing the feeling that such a big thing as killing people and destroying temples was done by Luo Hong on a whim. This Buddhist didn't think too much when he took action. Guangnan Prefecture, it's not very far away. Send a message back and let the disciples in the sect go to investigate. The little living Buddha said without any joy or anger. May I ask the living Buddha, are we not going to continue the pursuit? Yanjing looked at the little monk in confusion. If they continued the pursuit, they could directly find Luo Hong himself. Why bother to go to Guangnan Prefecture to investigate? Why chase him? I want to see what this donor Luo can do. The little living Buddha raised his lips and said with interest. 3 days later, in the main hall of the branch temple in Baohua City, Biyuan, with an eagle-like gaze, sat cross-legged at the head, looking coldly at the Yuanying elders in the hall. Brother Biyuan, we have sent out all our disciples to search for the traces of a Luo thief day and night. It's useless even if you force us. That's right, we have indeed tried our best. Maybe a Luo thief has already left Zilingsao, and we are all doing useless work now. Most of these Pure Land sect elders, whose cultivation bases are in the early Yuanying period, talked a lot, either pretending that they have tried their best, or questioning the meaning of the search. Enough. The great elder did not send me here to listen to your complaints. The search must continue, and you must be responsible for an area. Biyuan shouted, very dissatisfied. The elders looked at each other. When they heard this, they saw the same look in each other's eyes. Just perfunctory. Whoever takes it seriously is a fool. The other party is a late-stage cultivator. If you really meet him, how can you survive? Seeing this, Bun felt quite powerless. These elders who sit in the branch temple have been dominating for too long. Alas, I just hope that Luo the thief has really left, otherwise it is a foolish dream to rely on these people to kill the other party. Since when has our Pure Land sect become so weak? No wonder the Great Elder wants to hide the great plan of our sect from them. Just when I was secretly having a headache, suddenly a beam of light flew in from outside the temple, and after landing, a figure of a Dan-forming Buddha cultivator was revealed. Uncle Bun, Liujin City is asking for help. A Yuanying cultivator suspected to be a Luo Zhen is attacking the protective formation. What? How dare this person show up? Liujin City is deeper into our sect's sphere of influence than Luo Jincheng. Luo Zhen is really daring. Brother Bun, Luo Zhen is too much of a bully. Please lead us to attack quickly. The person who requested the attack was the abbot of the Liujin City branch temple. His eyes were bloodshot at this moment, which was completely different from his indifferent and high-handed look just now. All Yuanying elders, gather at the teleportation hall immediately. Bun cheered in a low voice. Luo Zhen came to the door like this, which saved him a lot of trouble. With an order, no matter if they were willing or not, everyone had to transform into escape light and flew out of the hall swoosh. Above Liujin City, Luo Hong looked at the familiar formation below and pressed down with his right palm. This time, there was not much resistance. The golden light shield exploded, and the Pure Land sect disciples in the temple were killed and injured. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.